Eric, let me assure you that
I don't even remember the
what
New
you
Year
are calling
celebration.
slow is actually fast.
You don't remember the New Year celebration?
I don't either.
It was such a long time ago, and we are still in
I actually
2021.
don't recall it. In fact, my mind, I think, is probably still in something like October. My mind.
October last year.
Yeah. That December, it just whizzed by.
Whoop.
Yeah.
It just whoop.
It just whooped. Now,
It's onomatopoeia that we're using this morning.
onomatopoeia ni mzuri.
Lazima. How are you doing, City?
I'm fine, thank you, sir.
Very good.
By the way, this cold,
Eh.
it has remained constant. It has remained constant.
So one thing that is remaining constant.
Yes, I want to just commiserate and sympathize with people whose chronological clock is not very different from mine, and people who may have ventured into the 6th floor, and those on the 5th, some on the 4th, because, my friend, your limbs will not thank you during this weather if you don't look after them well.
Right. So how do you look after them well?
One of the things you do is you exercise by stretching a great deal.
Okay.
Yes. Not muscle building, just stretching, and then don't try and run, walk. If you feel you want a little speed and break into a sweat, walk fast. If you feel you really want to break into a sweat and you want to help your cardio, then look for a place that is slightly hilly and walk fast up
the hill,
down, and then up again. Your muscles will get toned, your lungs will do their thing, and you will break into that sweat.
Right.
Running may not necessarily help you.
Right.
No. So that's what you do. You stretch.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All the best to the people in that chronological phase of that City has just described. Poleni sana. Msijali.
This
Ni hali ya
weather,
maisha.
you suddenly feel, I mean, it's not as though it's predictable. One moment it's your wrist, the next moment it's your knee. But more so, injuries of an earlier age, it's like they resurrect.
They now come back to tell you.
They actually come back to life. And
Remember
tell you,
that thing.
Sir,
Remember that day.
do you remember?
Yes. How about you, Ndu? How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, how are you?
I'm very well. You had a good day yesterday?
Yes.
And
It was all
slept
right.
well?
I slept well. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you still remember the thing that you were telling us about what you eat is what you are? I don't know what thing.
Yeah, what you eat before you sleep is how you feel in the morning. You feel kind of sluggish, maybe you ate something really heavy, feel fresh and crisp. Then maybe you had some nice greens and energy flowing through, things like that. It's true.
Greens.
Okay.
Let me tell you something about greens. If you went to boarding school in this country, it's health-related issues and perhaps a little behavior, mental change that would help you appreciate greens. You do not look for it. The word green is actually a bad word. Because
In high school, right?
Oh, yes. The way it is cooked, the way it is presented, you look forward to the day when you don't have to deal with it. For some people, it's maize and beans. You look forward to the day you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people cook the life out of these things, so it's not exciting anymore. But you can taste, if you cook it right, you can taste the flavors,
Actually, in many places, many boarding schools, they didn't cook the life out of it. They just boiled and then poured hot oil over it.
There you go, cooking the life out of it.
Okay. Welcome to the show, everybody. We are glad that you're joining us this morning. I'm also blocked.
Your what?
My dose is blocked.
Oh, your dose.
Yeah.
Told you.
I don't know what's happening.
Even if you're on the 4th floor, Eric, that one, believe me.
This is the limb that's now.
It starts, yes.
Okay.
It starts. These things that you thought you had overcome,
Yeah.
they have a...
Okay. Okay, despite my dosed block. Let us talk about very many things today. Number one, we want to understand this thing that KRA brought in, and the first time that you need to file for that is the 20th of this by the 20th of this month. Digital services tax if you offer digital services. So what does that mean? And what does that mean to minimum tax as well? We have an expert who will be joining us at the 8 o'clock hour to explain this to us and to take us through why KRA decided to go this route and very many other routes. Do we still have those small taxes that were introduced? How are they being rolled out? We'll have that conversation. We'll also look at conversation around what's happening in the country. So yesterday, Raila Odinga issued a statement where he agrees with his minority leader in the Senate, James Orengo. This bid to criminalize the hustler talk. He says, no point, no need. It's freedom of speech. Although this thing is as bad as the Nazi regime those days, but there's no need. Don't. We can counter it in a better way. Mm-hmm. So we'll have that discussion as well. And looking at what the president has done, he has made some changes to principal secretaries and chief administrative secretaries. We'll be looking at that as we look at the headlines. Let's talk about COVID-19.
Let's do
So, news coming out of Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Vice President of Zanzibar has gone. The principal, like a chief secretary in Tanzania has died.
Mm.
And all indications are COVID.
Yeah, it's true. So Zanzibar's first vice president, Maalim Seif Sharif Hamad, died unfortunately yesterday. He was undergoing treatment at the National Hospital in Dar es Salaam. He had tested positive for COVID-19 and was admitted to hospital. According to media, his death was announced yesterday. So he had been admitted about 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately the symptoms overtook and he lost his life to COVID. Of course, the news of his death came, and everybody who commented on it, most who commented on it said, well, this is something that now stares kind of ironically in the face of what the government of Tanzania is doing as concerns COVID. Certain things that they have said now for people to either protect themselves or not, and the just direct refusal of even bringing in vaccines to treat the population, not being truthful and honest about the real situation of COVID-19 in Tanzania.
Yeah.
So it's facing quite a lot in terms of backlash. And then you hear that folks, unfortunately, are dying from the same COVID that they've not chosen to look at with some kind of, seriousness. So this is quite unfortunate that this has happened now, unfortunately. A few people have died, and the hope would be that they start to look at this a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
But I think John Pombe Magufuli's government is hell-bent on sticking to traditional forms of medicine and not even going and asking or not even going and making requests for any kind of vaccines. And they say that, we can handle the situation with our traditional medicine here in the country. And that's what they're going to stick with. Okay? Yeah.
All right. So the vice president and also this chief secretary, they both had been admitted to hospital.
Yes.
They were undergoing, what do you call that now? Is that treatment?
They were undergoing treatment, and at some point had to go on ventilation support. So I think by that time the situation in his system had already deteriorated and he couldn't do anything about it. Plus, he fell into the category of aged, so things that already... There was no information about whether he had any underlying conditions. But by the time he was on a ventilator, things were already too late.
They had tested positive for COVID with his wife.
Yes.
Now, one thing that also then it comes out clearly is that there is COVID testing happening in Tanzania. So they tested positive for COVID.
They were feeling unwell, and that's when they went to get the tests. They didn't do like a random test to see what was going on.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
They go to hospital, they got tested for COVID. Now, I wonder what the situation of the condition of the wife is. as then the entire Zanzibaris start looking at that. And ACT was a lender, the political party that he belongs to. There are various other members of ACT as a lender who are saying, look, come on now, let's talk openly about COVID-19 in the country, and let's see how we can address this as an issue in the country. Number of people, high-level people dying. Also talking to people in Tanzania, and they tell, or those who know people in Tanzania, and they say, well, yes, we've seen a spike in the number of, let's say, deaths coming out of respiratory conditions. So clearly there's a spike in TZ at the moment.
Yes, there is. All right, let's just look briefly at other COVID numbers. Right now, we're still looking, past 110 million cases around the world. Let's look at the UK specifically now. The UK now has 4,071,185 cases. We see a steady decline of the reporting of cases in the UK. 12,718 new cases is what they found yesterday. But 738 new deaths is what was recorded in the UK. And when they were recording 500, 400, we saw that this was not good. The day before that, there were 799 new deaths in the UK. On Monday, there were 230 deaths. So they've risen about 500 deaths and have now maintained that number for the last 2 days. This is on the same day where news coming out of the United Kingdom is that they are announcing the travel ban on 33 countries over the COVID-19 variant. People traveling from 33 countries from entering its territory started February 15th to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 variant, which they say originally was identified in South Africa. And it's interesting because in East Africa, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Burundi are among the red list travel bans. Other African countries on the list include Angola, Botswana, DR Congo, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. These are now the countries in Africa that are on this list. For some reason, they feel that they are at higher risk of having the South African variant, as they call it, come into the country than the risk that is present in the United Kingdom of a strain of COVID, which they've already identified as being more dangerous than the first, more quicker in the onset of symptoms, and death being, let's say, higher guarantee, if I can call it that, of death if you get it. They're dealing with that, but at the same time looking outward and saying, you know what, here is something that's a little bit more dangerous, and we're not going to allow people to come in based on that.
Maybe it's a precautionary measure. You don't know what would happen if these two variants actually started operating in the country. Let's deal with one that we know, right? And if we are able then to stall the entry of this other variant, let's try as much as possible to do that. Probably is that. And if you look at those countries, those are all Southern African countries.
Yes, save, DR Congo is right there in the middle. But yeah, most of them, absolutely. And so Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC. So that's what we're looking at. They insist that the decision was based on recommendations of scientific research.
You know what I find interesting? Even as I listen to this debate around COVID, the vaccine, the acceptance, the approach, the rolling out, and so forth, is that countries that have a clear plan of what they want to do lack drama. You may report about what you may report on what they're doing, but the truth is they are doing it because they've planned, they've figured it out, they know what they're doing, and they're seeing the results. But the thing that I find interesting is, as with other issues which are purely political, not health related, for some reason there's always someone people are looking for to blame. You look at the issue of Tanzania, okay? They have taken a path that others have also taken. And that is burying your head in the sand and pretending this thing that is everywhere and is around everyone doesn't exist. And unfortunately, the consequences are known. It's not something that one needs to be even clever to predict. No. It is known. When other people are bringing down the effects of the pandemic, people who have ignored it have this unfortunate position they've put their citizenry in. They are going to be fighting COVID for a long time to come.
They'll deal with it for a while.
A long, long time to come. Because by the time they get around to dealing with it, what they're going to be doing, you're going to be dealing with something that has run away from you, something that has become a huge monster that you have almost no control over.
Too big. 17 minutes after 6. Let's take a break at this point and see what's happening in terms of the weather today. How is it going to look like in this country? Major towns here, major cities in Africa and other parts of the world. And then we look at the newspaper headlines. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution.
The weather with Spice
It's 16
FM.
degrees in Nairobi this morning. We're going to see highs of 28 today and lows of 15. 11 degrees and a dry day in Nyeri. Highs of 25. Cloudy conditions also there. 15 degrees and clear conditions in Nakuru. It'll go to highs of 29 today, down to 16. Lows will be recorded of 13 in Eldoret today. It's currently clear at 12. 29 the high in Kisumu. Mostly cloudy conditions at 21. Kakamega is clear at 17. We'll go to highs of 29. 32 the high in Mombasa today. 24 and mostly cloudy at the moment. It's 25 degrees in Malindi. We'll go to highs of 31. 27 will be the high in Kampala today. Rain this morning already and likely to be for most parts of the morning. It's clear in Dar es Salaam at 26, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Johannesburg is clear this morning at 18, highs of 27. 34 the high in Lagos today. Mostly cloudy conditions and a chance of rain this morning. It's clear in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 33 today. It's sunny in Beijing in the afternoon. 2 degrees at the moment. We'll go to highs of 7 and lows of -7. Clear conditions in Paris at 9 and a chance of rain later and snow combined. Highs of 13 and lows of 4. It's clear in London at 10. Highs of 11 and lows of 5. And the winter storms continue in New York and across most of the continental US. 0 degrees right now. That'll be the high for today, coming down to lows of -4.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning to you. 20 minutes after 6. Who is online?
Gasheri Wambijiwe says, good morning, guys. Tuning from Thika Road. Benson Mumo says, morning. Good morning to you. Charity Minor tuning from Nakuru this morning. Moses Gashari says, the KEMSA deal is everyone walked in and got millions in tenders. Everyone will be set free on bond. Where is justice? Really, really sad. He's feeling sad this morning, unfortunately. Vincent is tuned in, says, good morning, crew. It's like the New Year celebration was done last year, but don't worry, the year will come to an end. Ask Ndu to predict my state of mind. I took fermented milk last night. I can't predict your state of mind. I can tell you could be a little bit sluggish if you had heavy milk last night, though.
Fermented milk. So what is that?
His state of mind, I can't predict his state of mind.
So that thing about waking up. So how is he today?
How is he?
He's mala. Because he took maziwa mala last night. So he's just lala.
Yeah.
Huh.
You got it.
Okay.
Good morning, lady and
You
gentlemen.
can confirm that, Vincent.
Tell us.
Are you feeling lala-ish?
Michael Ocheng says, good morning, listening in from the Kenyan capital of...
The Kenyan capital of what?
The Kenyan capital.
It's called Nairobi. It was Nairobi yesterday, it's Nairobi today.
This
It's
guy.
the Kenyan capital of.
I was waiting for you to finish the
It's
sentence.
the Kenyan capital of Kenya.
Kenyan capital of drama.
Now Shirage is giving me problems here.
Okay.
Tumeanza kipindi cha
Carry
kwa-
on.
Kwaresima.
Kwaresima.
Wakati wa sala, kufunga na kupeana msaada.
Oh, that says we are in Lent.
Kwa ufupi, in short, in summary.
Tumeingia Lenten season.
Ah,
That's it.
that's it. He's at the station this morning, ready to board the Royal Eagle. Kaiser Obed is tuned in from Thika Road this morning, as well as quite a number of other folks. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone.
Do you know where the term Lent came from, actually? If you length, it's a period. What comes after winter?
Spring.
Precisely. And for those who live in a certain part of the world, what do you have in plenty? Is it daylight or is it nightlight? It's daylight. So it's a period that marked length, a lengthy period of daylight.
Ah.
Yes, Lent.
So that's why they decided to call it Lent.
Well, the two coincided. Remember, it's derivative. The derivative
And it also starts around the same time.
around the same time. It's the spring. Spring comes after winter, and during spring, in some parts of the world, you have lengthy periods of daylight.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, as our daylight, people don't notice it, but we also do have a lengthier period of sunlight during this particular part of the year. This
So
early
the
part
sun
of the-
sets later,
Yes, it does.
right around now. It
Yes.
does.
Yes. If you are in the western part of the country, it can be 7 o'clock and it's still daylight.
Even in Nairobi.
Yeah,
for a
even
number of-
yesterday,
yeah.
the sun was still out at 7.
Kwani, which part of Nairobi do you people live in?
It
7 p.m.
Yeah,
might be
7
wondering.
p.m. The sun was still out yesterday.
See the time when you checked outside and you thought it was sunset. Now
It
it
was
was
7.
about 5:30. It was
was
actually 7:30.
My point is, I think, made.
Yes. Let's hear today's proverb.
Right. As opposed to yesterday's proverb, which you said sounded just like an ordinary statement. Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever.
Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's also short-lived.
8 months is not short.
Almost. It's not short. It's actually not.
Eh?
It's not short.
Okay. So
For those of us who are observers, we may think it is short. For the people who actually endure the 8 months, it is not a short period of time.
character comes to an end, like pregnancy does.
That was not the proverb.
Oh, no. He is opening the discussion, and I think it is good that we open the discussion.
Oh, voila.
Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden.
It can't be hidden. That's the bit we're talking about. The 8 coming to an end will be accompanied by another proverb.
It'll be something else. Okay. Let's look at the headlines.
How?
Talk
Because this one
about
is doing me
that.
this thing.
Right.
What?
How I
Right.
walked into Kemsa and out with 347 million shilling deal. Easy as ABC.
No, it isn't.
That's what they wrote now.
Yes, that's what has been presented because that is what someone said.
I know, but it was easy for her. Anyway, woman, wait now, Siti. Ha. Woman with no credentials or capacity to supply medical equipment stuns parliamentary committee with how she secured huge COVID-19 equipment tender as mystery surrounds the role of former EACC boss Halake Wako. Okay, so shall we look at this story?
Yeah.
Let's. Former anti-corruption agency boss Halake Wako has been dragged into the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority scandal involving the supply of COVID-19 equipment. This was after it emerged that 347 million shillings paid to a firm for the supply of face masks was done through a bank account Wako, the former CEO of the EACC, co-owns. Azure Commercial Services, owned by Zubeida Nyamlondo Ngobi and Fanis Adhiambo Onditi supplied KN95 masks worth that amount to KEMSA.
Okay.
Nyamlondo, who was casually dressed, okay, it doesn't really matter what she was wearing, had a matching face mask when she appeared before the committee, took the committee in circles, at times contradicting herself and prompting the members of the watchdog to conclude she could be a proxy to some powerful individuals.
Okay.
Waco's name popped up following a sustained probing by the committee members for the witnesses to provide details of ownership and how the firm sourced for funds to finance such large contracts, having only done business worth 5 million shillings. 8 million shillings, in the previous years. So only made a little bit of money in business before, and suddenly comes up and gets this huge contract of 348 million.
Where's the problem?
I'm also waiting for that.
So, consequently, yesterday, they resolved to summon Wako to explain his link to the firm, which before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic was dealing with furniture supplies. Earlier, the witness told the committee chaired by Mvita MP Abdus Nasir that she saw Health CS Mutahi Kagwe on a television broadcast.
It's actually Abdul Somad.
Yeah, it's okay. Saying the country was in need of COVID-19 equipment before she proceeded to KEMSA offices in industrial area. She narrated how she walked into the offices without any documents and met the suspended and procurement director, Charles Juma, who she verbally told of the firm's capacity to supply the masks. She said Juma said, gave her the go-ahead to deliver the samples before she got a commitment letter.
And if you bring
to supply
samples,
the masks.
and we see that the samples actually meet the specifications that we
They
require,
had a chat. He said,
you'll
bring,
get the deal.
bring. Before a commitment letter, he told her, go ahead and supply.
Okay.
We were pre-qualified as a supplier for furniture and office fittings.
Yes.
But we had never supplied KEMSA at all before this particular contract. She said, because we had a pre-qualification, I walked there and met the procurement director and told him I wanted to supply masks. I went back the following day with samples. There was no written document. It was after the firm was handed a commitment letter to make supplies that directors realized that they did not have the money.
Okay. You see, I'm sure the directors knew from the very beginning that they didn't have money to be able to supply the quantities that they were pitching to supply. They must have known. Here is the issue. The story starts by saying she has no credentials to supply medical equipment. KN95 masks.
What credentials do you need to supply those masks?
KN95 masks. What? You must be a medical doctor or a trained pharmacist or what?
Or an aeronautical engineer.
Now that she has already been pre-qualified to supply furniture, was she a carpenter?
Next, they're going to tell you that you need certain qualifications to be able to wear the N95 mask.
Yes. This is such drama, and this is happening, unfolding in this committee. So yes, a pre-qualified company, the director goes in and says, all right, I see that you guys require masks. Can I supply mask? I can actually supply mask. Bring samples, we see. Some goes ahead and brings the samples I can supply. This is what you're looking for. This is what we're looking for. So go ahead, bring 347 million shillings worth of that. As a business person, you want now to finance this. It happens all the time. That's why, in fact, you even have banks offering this service.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's LC financing. There's
that letter of commitment is enough.
Yes.
If you know what to do.
You go with that and you get financing. So they go and look, and then Wako apparently now says, all right, so I can get you guys, I can be a guarantor for you guys to get a loan from this particular institution because of whatever relationships maybe he has with the bank or drama. Oh, you're not even the director of this company. Maybe you're operating on behalf of other people. Well, let's bring in the people. Okay, so dig deeper then and tell us who are those people.
Will you say we are wild cutting here?
Well,
or are we dead cutting?
We are dead cutting.
Nairobi Women's representative Esther Passaris says, and I quote, "You are here protecting people we know very well. You are a small fish being used by a very big fish. I have a feeling that this is a company of the COVID-19 billionaires." And she added, "I think we have the wrong person here. We need to invite Wako."
Where's the problem here? Look, I'm waiting. I've read this thing. I'm wondering, what is the problem? Is it that they were not pre-qualified to supply N95? Which company was pre-qualified to provide N95 masks?
Yes.
Which one? We didn't have COVID before. So how could
Maybe
you be
they had
qualified
been.
for it?
Maybe there had been some companies that had been pre-qualified to provide
Medical
supplies.
equipment.
medical equipment, which include N95 masks, gloves, syringes, blah 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 blah. Okay.
You know, my friend, these masks, do we need a license to go and buy a mask? No, it's a mask. It's someone has produced it. It's in the country because it meets certain standards.
When those guys at Kitui Technical started supplying PPEs, what previous experience did they have?
Or was it the Eldoret setup?
the Eldoret
that also
setup.
providing the same?
What prior experience did they have?
Look, I can see they are trying to bring our attention to what they consider to be wrongdoing. I'm waiting to see what is this wrongdoing. Okay, the former director, the boss of
Procurement
and the Anti-Corruption Commission, former boss. So who says that a private citizen cannot now go into business of supplying masks? Every other person and their cousin supplied masks. So why not him?
or just be a guarantor?
Look, this was an emergency situation. It's the truth of the matter, all right? What I thought was wrong, apparently it was not wrong, because I asked the question, but surely there is some issues here, conflict of interest, and you realize, no. The supply is not the person with the problem. The problem is with the people who enable this person to supply. So, okay, let's link the two. What did this person do wrong? What is it? What law did they break?
And this is how the COVID billionaires will walk away scot-free.
Just like that.
This is exactly how they will
I
walk.
can supply. What's the problem? I went, you said I should bring, I brought.
Okay,
Because you can't see anything wrong. That's why
what they
all
supplied,
just
was there
wakado.
something untoward in the product?
No
Was something
problem.
wrong with the product? We've been told they overcharged, okay?
347
Overcharged
million
according... look, you know
for
something?
N95
Huh?
mask.
This young lady did what she needed to do. She was called, she was summoned, she went there. She explained it as best as she could, okay?
Yeah.
This committee is wasting her time.
They were told, she was being told, she's not being forthright with her answers. Look, Bona, you're being intimidated by members of parliament.
Yes.
Tell us.
What question?
Tell us.
Look,
You'll not even be able to
this
answer.
this particular train left the station a long time ago. They should stop wasting our money and our time, okay? They know very well whom they should be questioning, whom they should be
And
asking.
they are not.
Yeah, and they are not.
And
So,
they will not
so
even call these
let
people
them
to question.
stop wasting our
It's
time.
just a game.
Yes.
27 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at the traffic. Okay? You can supply N95 masks if you have access to them.
And if you
Tell
can,
it,
and if you can buy it, you can also supply it.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na pembe.
hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only
I'm
way
getting
to
nothing.
start your
Absolutely
day.
nothing. It looks like today might be that day when you might be able to get from one end of the city to the other without too much. and then we're going to knock on wood if I can find some. But we're going to check it out, guys, and see how this is opening up. A little bit of traffic that's already forming on Mombasa Road, and then some on Thika Road, but it's looking quite smooth from now, unless I'm absolutely wrong and things have been warped. Do let me know. But getting into the CBD, it looks like it could be a little bit tricky later, but now would have been the time to leave if you wanted to. We're going to take a look at what's happening around the city coming from Thika Road and Westlands in a bit. But right now, the bypasses, you can use them without any issue. We're also going to take a look at how things are opening up in Mombasa. But for now, it looks pretty good, guys. We'll take a look in about half an hour and see how that may have changed. Talk to us. Spice of MKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
3 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We're looking at the headlines. So the president, Uhuru, has rewarded Raila and Kalonzo.
So we say.
Has he?
We here being the media.
If you look at how things have been done, the president yesterday appointed allies of ODM leader Raila Odinga and Wiper chief Kalonzo Musyoka to government as he sought to stamp his authority as well as see through the implementation of his legacy projects before his final term ends next year. Some officials were promoted or demoted. The fate of others is yet to be known. This is a very nice way of saying they've been fired. Look, if you're occupying a certain office and somebody has been named into that same office, story yako imeisha bana.
As in, what else do you want them to tell
Surely.
you? Short of get up and go.
Come and go and sit down.
Evil.
Mr. Jackson Musyoka Kala, this man is a close confidant of Mr. Kalonzo Musyoka, according to The Nation, and he has now been appointed the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection. We have Mr. Zakaria Yeko, who has served as a former Kenya Power and Rural Electrification boss. He has worked in the energy sector for a while. Now he's been moved into the Energy Ministry as Chief Administrative Secretary. We have the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development Board Chairperson, Dr. Sarah Ruto, who's been named CAS in the Ministry of Education, and this is in early childhood education and basic education. The person who is holding that office, Dr. Belio Kipsang, has been moved to PS Regional and Northern Corridor Development. Lawrence Omuhaka, who is currently the Finance Chief Officer in Kakamega County, has been tapped by the President and brought to the national government as a CAS in the Ministry of Agriculture. David Osiani, who is a political commentator and serves in the Chemelil Sugar Board and is also a close Raila ally, according to this story, has been appointed CAS in the Ministry of Industrialization. Now we're looking at others who have been shuffled and moved. Rachel Shebesh, who has been CAS in the Ministry of Youth and Gender Affairs, she does not know where she sits because somebody else has been named CAS in the Ministry of Youth and Gender Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
So Rachel Shebesh is one of those now who's wondering, so Sasa, what happens? My mandazi is being served to somebody else. My office is being occupied by somebody else. So am I still a CAS? And maybe you can help by helping. You can help to answer Rachel Shebesh. Nelson Gaisho here, who has been CAS in the National Treasury and Planning, also does not know what has happened to him because there's somebody else who's been named CAS in the Ministry of Treasury and Planning.
And we can't have two CASs?
You'd have to have another State Department, like CAS in the State Department of this and CAS in the State Department of the other.
If you split the departments, maybe you can still have
Yeah, for example, now he can be told that the new CAS in the National Treasury. And then the other one is the CAS in planning, for planning. So at least now me, I'm handling planning. But if you're there, so now you're a bit confused. Japhet Ntiba Mishani, who has been the PS for Fisheries, has now been moved to the State Law Office as Chief Administrative Secretary. And the person who was the chief administrative secretary there, Winnie Gosho, has been moved to Interior and Coordination of National Government. So a PS has, now what did you call this? From being PS to chief administrative secretary. Is that a promotion? Is that a demotion? PS to assistant minister. PS, you're the accounting officer in the ministry, in the department. Assistant minister, you read the minister's speech.
Actually, yes, but you are actually senior.
Okay.
It's just that if you're talking about functions, what are we determining seniority with? Someone's functions or someone's stature? It's like a CS is boss.
Is boss off.
Yes. So if you're the deputy, you're still boss.
You're the boss of
yes,
policy.
Exactly. However, when it comes to operations, day-to-day management, somebody else.
These are lighter duties.
Yeah. No.
So you can say Professor Misheni has been given lighter duties.
That is what one would say. But, you know, whenever you are in a position, qualified as you may be, and it's as a result of some political leanings, unfortunately, political whims are what they are. Should the wind change, then you really have to understand that they may also change with you. We've seen this happening before. There was a time during President Moi's time when anyone who worked for the government needed to be alert. The 1 o'clock news was very, very important.
Yeah.
Because your departure from your office could be announced there.
Oh, right, I heard that.
Or it happened to many people.
Yeah.
You may have gone for a state function, you're having lunch, and your driver or your security person comes and tells you,
I'm going to pick somebody else.
or better, if they're polite, they say, look, let me drop you home, because you're not, this thing has come to an end. It happened to many, many, many people.
Not cool at all.
And the order is the driver takes the vehicle to the nearest chief's office.
Those are instructions.
Surrender government property to the nearest government office.
Because your driver is also a government employee.
Yes.
So then he's assigned to, or she's assigned to somebody else.
Yeah, to the new boss.
But that isn't a problem.
Then they still have their job.
There's a transport department in each of these ministries that deal with these things. They don't have a problem. They were assigned to you. They can be assigned to somebody else.
Yeah. It's just that now you Jipanga. Now, do you see this as, so you're saying that when I read the headline that Ouru has rewarded Raila and Kalonzo, you're like, so we are told. You don't feel that? You don't see that?
I mean, it would appear as though they're being, it would appear as though they're being given a gift by, appointing their friends and supporters in these government positions. Then we would say, okay, was it being done with that in mind? This is what we are told.
Most certainly, yes. Most certainly, yes. Look, the optics, we are supporting you. You have supporters.
Yes.
You, the great leader.
Yes.
How do your supporters view that this support that you're giving is being rewarded by one of your own being appointed? It is the oldest way of showing support and showing...
returning the hand.
Yes, exactly. Oldest. Why don't we take it to a different level? For instance, how do people get nominated? Whether as an MCA, whether as a member of parliament, Senate, how do you get? Because you have been loyal.
You've participated. You've worked very hard in the campaigns. You've done a lot, so you are rewarded with a nomination.
And by the way, it's not a Kenyan thing. The world over.
It's global.
Yep.
It's global.
So it's not unusual. It's not unusual.
Okay, let's take a quick break at 7:15. So we'll be looking at more headlines shortly. Good morning.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
What are you looking at?
I am looking at some really interesting things.
Pick one.
Ex-wife entitled to 15% of man's property. This is Daily Nation, page 9. Qadi orders man to support ex-wife and unwed daughter. Islamic law extends period of parental responsibility to girl till marriage. Okay. A Muslim father is legally obligated to support and provide for his unmarried daughter until she weds. A Qadi court has ruled in a parental responsibility dispute involving a divorced couple. Although the Kenya Children Act says a parent has no legal obligation to support his or her child after the 18th birthday. Yes, unless under special circumstances, senior principal Qadi Abdul Halim Athman, while sitting in Isiolo, said that Islamic law extends the period of daughter's rights to parental responsibility until marriage. Why I am bringing this to the fore is simply understanding the duality of the legal positions that we have in this country. Now, up until recently, before the president assented to a certain law legalizing polygamy, we had what we call traditional laws, okay, to put it loosely. And there was always that dichotomy in the discussion around which holds sway, which is which, okay? Now, this is yet another example. So those who subscribe to this faith and have issues, so because this is a social issue now, it's not a criminal issue, what this particular court determines then is the law by which you will abide. But the question that comes to my mind, if you abdicate this faith, then are you, then of course you abdicate.
You're no longer bound by by the Sharia law, right?
No,
or the Islamic practice. What? Okay. As we still talk about the courts, so the Judicial Service Commission has done the shortlist of those who had applied for position of Chief Justice and a judge of the Supreme Court. So those who have now been shortlisted for a position of Chief Justice are 10. After scrutinizing their documents, they include the President of the Court of Appeal, Justice William Ouko, Court of Appeal Judge Martha Koome, High Court Judge Said Chitembwe, and Employment and Labour Relations Court Judges Matthew Nduma Ireri and Jagi Marete. Others are Senior Counsel Philip Murgo, Fred Ngatia, Patricia Mbote, and Professor Wekesa Moni and Aliciano. Those are the ones that will now be called in for interviews. Those dropped were Professor Mario Tinga, Otindi Ontwenka, and Brian Matagaro. Those were dropped. They did not meet some certain
minimum
requirements. Okay. So the rest proceed to the next phase. Those that were also shortlisted for the judge of the Supreme Court include Ouko, his Court of Appeal colleagues Martha Koome, Katharina Mutoinoti, High Court judges Joseph Sergon and Chitembwe, Professor Lumumba Nyaberi, Ms. Aliciano, and Justices Marete and Nderi. Those will now be interviewed again for position of Supreme Court judge. My crystal ball still tells me that either Miss Yano or Justice Koome will be the new Supreme Court judge, one of those two women, while the President of the Court of Appeal will be the next Chief Justice.
Okay, then.
But I am not interviewing anyone.
Time will tell.
I am not even being asked to go and, take my crystal ball to the chair of the JSC.
This Bill of Rights.
But if they asked me, I'll give it to them.
This Bill of Rights is a wonderful thing, wouldn't you say, Eric? Where you have the ability to actually just give your opinion and hold it sacrosanct and say, this is my view.
This is what I feel. Okay.
Separate Raila and BBI, Kibisho urges Mount Kenya.
Right.
Okay. How this will be done is a very
separate Raila and BBI.
Yes.
Okay.
This is what our PS for the Interior is saying, right? He appealed to residents to separate constitutional changes initiatives from Raila, as it is not indicated anywhere that should the bill pass at referendum, he will become president. On the other hand, in the not too distant past, Raila Odinga was reported to have said that those who kept asking, is he vying? And he said, look, folks, a lot of what I'm going to do will be determined by what happens with this push for the BBI.
So you're saying you can't separate?
So I'm saying which is which.
I think I get the message that Dr. Kibicho is passing is this whole Raila phobia, saying we cannot pass this BBI because of this man here. She's like, forget. Look at BBI on its own merit. Right? Make a decision based on the content of the BBI and do not bring in Raila there. When it comes to 2022 and the man wants to be president, now there, make your decision based on what you feel about his agenda and what he represents. Okay? But those two, referendum this year is not a pro or anti-BBI vote. I mean, Raila vote.
Is it really a Raila phobia? I'm just asking the question. Is it really a Raila phobia?
In Mount Kenya?
Yes.
That the fact that, the way they keep saying the man is unsellable in the region and all.
I've heard all that, and I'm still asking the question because if politicians speak, I know politicians are speaking. That's really it.
Yes.
Yes.
And when the ordinary people are speaking?
Then the ordinary people are speaking, and the way the ordinary people normally speak is through their vote. Yes. But this issue of a political leader claiming that at all times what they say is representative of the people, that I don't buy.
Okay. Yeah. In this particular case, why do you think the civil servant would go and tell people, look, separate? Civil servant who by now has received a security briefing from across the country. Don't you think that he's actually getting the message not from political leaders but from the ground?
From the people that
there's some discomfort when it comes to Raila.
That discomfort has been there for a long time. What I'm actually asking is that
how we describe the discomfort.
Yes, and also it's a discomfort that was created over a long period of time and it's not going to be very easy to get rid of. But it doesn't mean it cannot be gotten rid of. So you are saying that he is trying to tone it down and say, folks, this isn't quite that. Okay? The very people who perhaps contributed to that particular position that Central Kenya is in are now saying something different. That is going to be a tall order.
It's always tough.
It is tough.
It's always going to be tough.
Speaking of something else that is tough.
Right.
There's a plan to increase the debt ceiling above 9 trillion shillings. We know this.
Yeah.
Now CS Ukuriatani says Treasury will ask MPs to approve the request to raise the debt ceiling. He says Kenya needs cash to pull it out of recession. That's what Kenya currently is in now. So all of this talk is after the 2021 medium-term debt management strategy that was released this week. And it revealed that the government must increase the debt ceiling beyond 9 trillion shillings to get the headroom to borrow the billions the Treasury needs to finance the new financial year that starts in June. Okay? The debt strategy notes that it will be impossible to fund the new budget for 2021 and into the medium term if the limit is not increased. To accommodate the fiscal deficits in 2021-2022 fiscal year and into the medium term, the statutory debt limit has to be expanded. It notes that the government's debt strategy formulation has been on a background of public debt fast approaching the statutory ceiling of 9 trillion as set out in the Public Finance Management Act. As a result of this, the implementation of this strategy may require the revision of the debt ceiling through the amendment of the PFM Act based on future borrowing requirements. So the only way to get more money is to increase the debt ceiling.
Yeah, raise the ceiling so that you give us the leeway to borrow.
The only way to fund the country is to borrow right now.
They want to raise it to 9 billion.
No, it's at
above
9 trillion.
Remember, they want to take it to...
Oh, sorry, we are trillion now. So this above is what, 10? Is it 11?
That's been talked that they wanted to move it to 12.
To 12.
Why don't they just raise it to 15?
Give yourself,
so that we don't have to keep having this discussion every other day.
So we don't have to come and ask Parliament to do this again.
Give 15 once and for all so we know.
Must we have a ceiling?
Oh, wow.
Actually, Eric, now that's clear thinking in my mind. Yes, I mean, surely. Why are we bothering with these things? Why not just say, folks?
You borrow.
You borrow. Yes. For the next 5 years, anytime you feel like borrowing, just borrow.
See, now the thing is, think about it like this, guys. And I think now the deeper conversation here is that right now, Kenya will not be able to fund its budget without borrowing. Will not be able to fund the budget.
This is news, is it?
No, but I mean, just look at it. Before, okay, let's look at last year when the budget was being put together. And they knew that a certain amount would have to come from borrowing.
Yes.
But now what we are saying is that you will not be able to fund the budget at all if you don't borrow.
Well, not at all.
Well, I mean,
we still have to. We still
there's
have
a little
revenue.
that you use domestic here and there.
there's-
There's revenue coming in, etc., etc. But
It's just that a huge chunk
of it is
of
not
our budget
available.
is increasingly becoming a deficit that needs to be filled by borrowing.
That needs to be filled. Period. Now,
Yeah, that
the only
deficit-
option right now is to borrow.
The deficit is increasing.
Yes.
As our problem.
But you see, not new.
No.
Not new.
And not unique.
No, not unique. Not unique.
So Parliament is being asked to, do this quickly.
Well, quickly or not, but I want to observe whether Parliament will actually ask for certain guarantees. Yes.
what?
Well, like for instance,
Remember, we were told by one of the members of the Finance Committee in Parliament, who sat in that committee for many years. Every time the last time they came and asked for this, we said, give us the debt register, updated debt register, up to today. No.
well,
Even the one you have now is 2018, and even that has gaps.
Yeah.
debt registers by their nature must have gaps in Kenya.
Oh, and thank you for finishing that in Kenya.
As we get to the top of the hour, something happened at Moi Girls High School in Eldoret yesterday. So the girls decided, we are done. We are tired of our head teacher and we want her transferred. And they downed their tools, so to speak. A number of grievances that were raising. They jumped the school's main gate from 5 a.m. in an attempt to take to the streets of Eldoret to air their grievances. They were later addressed by the Wasingishu County education officials. They laid bare their troubles. The protesting girls are accusing the head mistress, Ms. Chumba, of removing eggs and meat from their menu. Yet their parents had paid full fees, and the government has also shortened the second term by 4 weeks. Sasa pesa ya mayai imeenda wapi? We want to know. The students are also accusing the principal of harassing subordinate staff, among a myriad of other issues, saying, in fact, she's also very, very rough. She's even parents, when they come to visit them, they are frisked. And I heard one of the girls saying, surely, why are you frisking an old mama? This is, showing lack of respect. And so the school had to be closed.
But it was a peaceful demonstration.
Yeah, they did not throw stones or burn anything.
They merely protested.
They merely wanted to pour out into the streets.
Yes.
And go and say, haki
Peaceful
yetu.
demonstration. Peaceful. Yes.
So it's possible.
It's possible. But also the thing of, this is, it's a group of teenagers who feel aggrieved by their school head, and they feel, and I think they also got support, because by the time they're coming to say, subordinate staff are being harassed, it's because subordinate staff have come and told the students, by the way.
Let me add a little spicing to this particular broth.
Right.
Some teachers are also involved.
Of course.
Some teachers who have issues with
the head
are also involved.
And you just send a message that, unajua mko na njaa, unajua siku hizi amkuli mayai. But anyway, today in math we move on. Planting a seed. Things came to a head yesterday. Let's see whether the headmistress will be moved. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Keep it right here for more conversations. In the next hour, we talk about something that the parliament wants to do and what politicians are now debating over. Good morning. 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so that moment of traffic that was non-existent was brief in all ways. We see now traffic on Mombasa Road stand still all the way to Githurai today, not moving on Thika Road. Okay, let's look at Langata Road, where there's a pileup right around Wilson Airport, headed outbound and also inbound today. Mombasa Road right after Gateway Mall all the way towards town. The police are actually trying to get traffic moving today, and people are not complaining too much about that one. Let's take a look then also at Langata Road coming down coming down towards Bagadiwe and then out towards Bagadiwe, that's fine. Going towards the Nyeri Stadium, you're going to slow down a little bit as you're trying to get into the CBD, okay? So now traffic has picked up. Where it was quiet before, now it's loud. Kiambu Road has already piled up. Trying to get to Mthaiga Corner, it's going to take some time. We'll take a look in half an hour and see how this may have changed. Talk to us on Spice FMKE on Twitter. Text us 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 2.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. A very good morning to you, wherever you're tuned in this morning. Welcome to The Situation Room. This is the second hour of our show. We're now live on KTN Home for 2 hours, as well as being live on Spice FM, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7, 96.7 in Eldoret, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, Mombasa is 87.9, and Nairobi 94.4. We begin this and every hour with the day's proverb. City Muga.
Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever.
Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever. Okay.
At some point.
You will see someone's character.
At some point. It's true character. You see?
True character.
Yes, exactly. There's always what we find presentable and what we want the public to know. And what we believe will put us in a good light, But give it time. You will see that person for what they actually are, exactly for what they are. Yes.
Judge ye not. And
you know, this is a reality that I think any young couple or couple that are courting will subscribe to, because everyone puts their best foot forward.
So that's why it's important to court for a long time.
Yes, it is, because it gives you time to actually see things that ordinarily you wouldn't see in that short space of time.
They start relaxing, start lowering their guard.
Yes, and then
get out of the
you
shell.
Get to see, and you get to see them when they're irritated. You get to see them when they don't like the way you chew your food. You get to see them with the color. You get to see many things. Yes. That now is it coming to the fore.
After they've done all the...
Well, yes, and then you can then make an informed decision as to whether you want to continue with that relationship or not.
Or not.
Yes.
Other people assume that they can actually bend somebody's character. They're like, this one, I'll work on him. Or
I think the idea, hope is a good thing. But it is also important to base your hope on an element of reality. There are certain things that don't just stare at you in the face, they slap you in the face. So please see it for what it is. If you then see some of these traits and you think they can change, unfortunately, you also need to accept alongside this that is part and parcel of that person. And the likelihood of it changing is next to zero. Yes. However, there's light at the end of this particular tunnel. You see, if you can't change them, you change.
You change.
Because you can change yourself.
So you change and conform to them.
No. Change and understand. You know, there are things that you believe in. There are things you condemn. There are things you just understand.
Compromise.
Yes, you understand. And once you've understood it, then you make a decision again.
Yes. Like, can I live with this? Or can I not?
Or how can I live with this?
Or how can I live with this?
Yes.
And there are some things that are just complete deal breakers.
Some things are precisely what you've just said, deal breakers.
Okay. So let's have a conversation about what is happening in the National Assembly. And we talked about this again on Monday. The National Assembly's Security Committee wants amendments to the National Cohesion and Integration Commission Act of 2018. And what they want to do here is to insert some phrases that talk about if you utter words that incite, inflame people based on their social status or class, then that also has been criminalized. All right? And this is something that has, is gathering steam, and the public discourse is picked up on this. We saw the other day a minority leader in the Senate, James Orengo, voicing his opinion and saying, okay, we have fought so hard for people to have freedom to speak and express themselves. Now, starting to go this route, we may be appearing like, we are winning a war against or a fight against somebody. But what it actually is doing in the bigger picture is we are curtailing people's freedom of expression. If I feel a certain type of way, I should be free to express it and don't criminalize it. He says, if we feel that the hustler dynasty narrative, for example, is wrong, then come up with a counter narrative that shows this is the right way to go. Don't go and put it in law, because putting it in law does not address the issues that are being raised. Yesterday, ODM leader Raila Odinga issued a statement in which he said exactly the same thing in different words. And he was basically saying, okay, from where I sit, in my opinion, the hustler dynasty narrative is dangerous, and it has its dangers on where it's going. But let's allow people to express and air their views. What we need to do is come up with a counter narrative on where we feel that they're going wrong and tell the people the right thing. And he says, in fact, when I look at the hustler dynasty narrative, it takes me back to history and the history books of Adolf Hitler and what he was doing with the Nazi movement and what he was trying to, segregate that community into three. Says there's this which is a pure breed, there's this which is a semi-pure, and then there are the others. And we need to find a way of ridding ourselves of the others. The madoa-doa. That's what they'd have called it in those days if they had the time, if they knew the language. Now he says, but that is the way to handle this is not to go to Parliament and put it in some legislation that criminalizes talk. Allow people to talk. Come up with a counter narrative. Do you think do you agree, first of all, with the sentiments that have been expressed by Raila Odinga, by Jim Orengo, and I've also seen by Moses Wetangula who's saying the same thing? Or do you feel that if indeed there is serious danger in this hustler talk, then it should be addressed by saying this hustler talk is dangerous for the well-being of the country and it should also be criminalized? Do you think so? Ndu?
I think it's difficult. It's difficult to criminalize something like this because of the nature of the talk, and also because of the nature that are you going to now slap criminal activity on the way people's minds are actually operating? Because we cannot take away from the fact that there are very many people who feel disenfranchised as a result of their social status, right? The resultant action from this kind of speech is the problem. What could happen as a result of this kind of prolonged talk over and over again? What could happen as a result of that is what we're looking at. I'll give you a very good example. On one of the feeds that we have this morning, the incident of the Kisi deputy governor being involved in a road crash in Narok County had his official car burnt by border operators, and 2 people died in that crash. Do you know what one of the comments was? It seems that the hustlers have gotten one of their own. Do you see? Border operators now burnt a vehicle of a Kisi deputy governor. And already you see that split because people are thinking, okay, here's somebody on one side who has, and it would appear that he got into an accident and really didn't matter who died as a result of that accident. The borders have come in and burnt this vehicle because of the accident. And in the minds of people, it's like, oh, okay, the hustlers have gotten one of their own. It is the resultant action from this continued speak that gets into people's minds. And that, I think, is what is trying to be curtailed. The freedom of speech is definitely something that should be accorded to people. But we must also realize that even with those freedoms comes some kind of conditioning in the minds that could be very, very dangerous. How else do you get people to believe a certain narrative? Look at how bad it was for the Nazis. Where did it start from? It started from somebody saying something over and over and over and over again. And then it got into the minds of people. The action that was taken after that, maybe they didn't want to, maybe they didn't think they ever would. But that's what conditioning does.
Actually, it didn't start with someone saying something over and over and over. The saying over and over was taking advantage of a situation that already existed. Remember, the debate around the Nazi movement begins with World War I and the reparations that followed. And the thinking was that the nations that were against the German advancement in World War I, the reparations, the demands they put on the German public was unfair. There was the issue of taking back land that previously Germany... Put it this way, there was a list of things that they did that left the German pride and value not just injured, it was dented, it was damaged. So someone who came with a narrative that appeared to uplift this particular damaged, dented image was someone whose narrative was welcomed. So if you're talking about the hustler narrative, instead of looking at the hustler narrative, ask, why is it gaining traction? Why is the hustler narrative appealing to some people? Now, why? And the reason is very simple. With COVID, we have a situation where poverty levels have risen. With COVID, it has become clear that there are those, and this is not a situation that began yesterday in Kenya. We have writers who've written about this. Ngugi wa Thiong'o famously wrote about this, the Wabenzi tribe as he called them. People who appear to have and who seem to be having more and more, and those who don't have and appear to be having less and less with time. So anyone who, and by the way, this class of people who don't have, previously it had to do with someone who didn't have a certain formal education. No longer the case. There are very many people in that bracket who do have formal education, who have taken it even to the level of tertiary and university levels and still feel that they're in that. So you're talking about a mix that was ready for someone to actually take advantage of. It existed.
It was already there.
It existed.
So the hustler narrative has taken very many forms. There's a form of the social status, the haves and have-nots, those that feel that they don't have opportunity. There's the other form of the politics, those that enjoy political privilege and those that do not seem to enjoy that political privilege, and all these things. Because by the time we have these criminals in the name of boda riders torching a vehicle, those are criminals. It has absolutely nothing to do with a hustlers. So you own a bike. Your pillion passenger does not own a bike. So who's the hustler? Who's the dynasty there?
So then what you're saying is that this trickles
because
down
the
to so
passenger
many
doesn't
levels.
own a bike, he can look at you and start calling you a dynasty and beat you and take your bike.
Because if your passenger owned a bike, they wouldn't
Yes.
have boarded your bike.
It's criminal behavior that just needs to be reined in. That's one side. Let's just agree. Boda guys, nonsense of hustler. That is absolute nonsense in my books. It is breakdown of law and order. Hilary Mutyambai, Dr. Matiang'i need to be acting on this. Chap. The issue of, sparking that emotion on the basis of people who have and people who don't have, people who seem to enjoy the opportunity. And that's why such stories of how I walked into Kempster and out with 347 million shillings deal. Even the phrasing of this, if you just think about it, it's basically riding on that. There are some people who have it so easy. You're just walking, you go into an office, you come out, you have a deal to supply, equipment worth 300 million shillings. Well, I have been trying to walk into offices, I'm stopped at the gate. And I'm only looking for a job. So it's that narrative. If it's dangerous, then why not find ways of curtailing this dangerous narrative and say, all right, to this extent, or if it's proven to beyond this point, it's criminal. while at the same time allowing freedom of speech, but freedom of speech calling that the responsibility that should come with that freedom of expression.
For me, I see the building up of these narratives as a direct shirking of responsibility when it comes to actually sorting out the issues that resulted in these narratives in the first place. When you have class divides, what does that mean? That there is no balance when it comes to things like economic development, that there's not enough when it comes to the provision of jobs, that there's not enough when it comes to education. So for me, when you come up with a narrative like that, it's the same thing that you would have done with tribe. It's the same thing that you would have done with the provision of resources. You find something upon which you can divide people. You cannot tell me that this entire narrative that has been built up, for example, was done because you want to be able to let people see that they're actually disadvantaged and put me in a position whereby I can raise you up from your point of disadvantage. It means that there is a gap. There's a problem in the way the country is being run, and that is what should be dealt with. But this narrative comes up because, to me, then people are riled up with this, and people are, look at it even now. We're still focusing on the hustler dynasty all this time, focusing on that, without focusing on what the real problem is. We talked about it. People have an issue. People's resources, even in the old days, have been taken. Somebody comes in, forms a narrative and says, actually, you know what? We as a people have been disenfranchised. But if you look at it as a whole, what really is the problem? There's not enough across board. A sustainable environment has not been created in the country whereby you don't have to have the majority of the people living in poverty. Those are the issues that should be dealt with. And that's the responsibility that should be placed on those shoulders of people. Rather than come up with a narrative, fix the issue. Fix the issue.
Deal with the issue.
The narrative is an easy way out from responsibility. It's an easy way out from responsibility, and then people are going to be riding on it for
And then we focus
months,
now
and then you
on
focus
this
on the narrative,
issue.
Rather than focusing on the issue.
On the issue that
and
needs to
saying,
be
should we
focused on.
sort out economic issues in the country? Absolutely. Should you sort out those issues that are not working, where people have to be disadvantaged? They cannot send their children to school.
Yeah.
They cannot have a worthy form of employment. They cannot sort out capital for their business. That's what we should be talking about. Not dividing people on this class issue. Not dividing people. Because at the end of the day, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for money. People are looking for education. But here we are saying, you know what? There's hustlers and dynasties. No. Sort out the issue. The narrative is an easy way to shirk responsibility. Do the job.
You know, unfortunately, this narrative resonates.
And because it resonates, that's why it has gained so much traction.
It does.
Because
if you think about it, it's very emotional. But at that point when you're struggling to make ends meet, and someone comes and tells you something that you actually feel, yes, it's true, I'm struggling to make ends meet, it resonates.
it does.
The problem now goes beyond that, where you're trying to take advantage of my emotion.
Actually, that is unfortunate in the extreme, because something which presents itself as an empowerment narrative then has a nasty twist to it. You see, and it also moves the real debate, as Ndu is putting it, from actually taking place. For instance, we keep talking about these huge infrastructural projects that we have, which are good for the country. Actually, they are. They actually are. But are they the only solutions? For instance, someone talks about there being congestions or roads. Okay. Building these huge roads, they are not necessarily a bad thing. But are they the only solution to congestion? If, for instance, this road that we have that is going to end up at Westlands, all right? It's a PPP. Whoever's building it is going to raise money by actually charging for people to use it. You don't have to use it. It's an alternative.
Yes.
But it will not cost the government as much money as these are the huge infrastructure projects that we have. If you look at the road that we're talking about, the multi-laned road that's supposed to go to Mombasa, ideally, from an AU perspective, that road is actually supposed to be Nairobi to Abidjan. Now, if you have that sort of road, what it means is that people, let's talk about the Mombasa, Nairobi one. If there's a highway that only requires people to pay, it means if I have a truck, instead of spending 2 days on the road, I will be on that road and I can be in Nairobi in 6 hours because I don't have the interference. And it means I can rest and actually go back to Mombasa. So even for business purposes, it means, and you know you're going to pay. Whoever is in that business, I will look at it and say, you know, actually it makes sense for me to just pay to use this road because I am able to go to Nairobi, deliver and go back in one day. So it means this same truck every day can be going to Nairobi. Now, if we extended it and it actually becomes the superhighway that goes to a place like Abidjan in West Africa, then what are you saying? The very thing that the government has been promising takes place, but it doesn't have to cost us what it does. Why doesn't the government talk about a PPP with matatu owners? All these matatus are in circles. They all have money. Do the maths and ask yourself what one matatu. Okay, if we say 12,000 matatus in Nairobi, for instance, and each matatu costs 3,000 shillings. If you do the maths and you ask yourself, what would it cost if these matatu owners were told to either buy some of those lengthy buses, or if they were told to participate in creating trams, whatever business, whatever transportation options? Have we actually pursued all these options? The answer is no. We prefer the huge infrastructure projects that have huge amounts of money for reasons that are fairly obvious to each and every Kenyan. Now, so when the government, which is in place, has an issue among themselves, and somebody who not was in the government, is in the government, takes the side of those who are disadvantaged, at some level it is a good thing. But that person is still in government, and that person is one of the people who has been in a position to change the very thing.
To bring changes.
Yes. And I'm talking about structural changes that can be sustained over a long period of time.
Right.
Because everything I've mentioned here will solve certain problems, but this issue of employment will also be brought into being. But infrastructure problems, projects which never happen, doesn't solve anybody's problem.
It doesn't.
It just creates a bigger problem called debt.
It doesn't. And now the issue, when we see the politicians going out into the public and speaking this way and, harping up the issue of sisi ni wanyonge hohehahe na wali mabwanyenye, and they are rich and they have access to all the wealth and we don't have access to that wealth, is that stoking animosity between the classes?
It's not just stoking it, it's igniting it. That's not stoking. That's igniting.
All right. Where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line between speaking the truth, and igniting and stoking?
See, the problem here is that it's you can't build a narrative on something that doesn't bear an element of truth. That's just it. You can't now just start telling people, let's go there. There's something that you found which you already know resonates with certain people. You know that is the case. But what is being done, unfortunately, with this is that you're getting people to become your fishers of men and following you everywhere you go based on this thing. Whereas what you should be actually doing is looking at the reasons as to why they're in this position in the first place and trying to see how you can figure out how to sort it out. Now, there's a problem because we continue harping on that issue. The nail has already gone through the wood. We get it. But now you're trying to make a different building, remove it and try to sort that problem. What you do now is that you build animosity when every situation that comes about, people are saying, hold on a minute, I'm in this position because somebody has taken the spoils of something that could actually be mine or that we could actually share. And that narrative has already been planted in your head. It will get you to do things. We cannot ignore the power of the mind. That something has been planted there already, and you think that, all right, there's this divide. Now I can do whatever I want or whatever I feel because I'm disadvantaged, and it could lead to something dangerous. It's not about
I'm entitled to take action,
and then I can do what I want, when I want, and I could behave in a manner untoward because it's accepted that there's already this divide.
Right.
Everybody knows that the entire country is having this conversation right now. So if I do something, people will understand it's because I'm disadvantaged.
Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back, then let's address the question, should this be criminalized or should we just let it be like, it's freedom of expression. Come on, we have it in the Bill of Rights. 25 minutes after 7, let's take a look at the traffic and what's happening on the roads. We'll be back shortly on KTN Home, Spice FM and online.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Evan Wasingishi was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, so we're still looking at some partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. The sun is going to come out though, 16 degrees, going to highs of 28 today. 11 degrees and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 25. Highs of 29 in Nakuru. It's mostly sunny at 16. Sunny conditions at Eldoret at 12, going to highs of 26. We'll see highs of 29 in Kisumu, partly sunny at 21. Mostly sunny conditions at 14 in Kakamega, going to highs of 29. 32 will be the high in Mombasa, where it's partly sunny at 25, and it's also 25 in Malindi, with highs of 31. Kampala is raining this morning at 19, highs of 27. And Dar es Salaam, sunny conditions at 26, highs of 32. Sunny conditions in Johannesburg at 17, highs of 27. And Lagos is mostly cloudy now. The chance of rain there later, highs of 34 and lows of 25, where it's mostly cloudy in Kinshasa at 33, highs of and lows of 25.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Traffic.
Okay, so Kiambu Road is a mishmash already, guys. Trying to then connect with Muthaiga Corner this morning. Very, very slow. Mombasa Road also is building up outbound and inbound today. The construction is not helping, but we understand it's going to take some time to get out of this one. Mombasa Road after Gateway Mall, the cops are trying to sort that out. It's moving bumper to bumper in some places. All right, Langata Road, where we saw that accident early this morning, that has slowed things down some all the way to the Timor roundabouts. Use Bagathi Way if you can. You get into the city a longer route, but you'll get there without too much of an issue. It's slowing down in some parts of Bagathi Way, but then as you get out to the to the city mortuary roundabout, you should be all right getting into the CBD. Uhuru Highway, slow, very slow, from Nyayo Stadium all the way through to Westlands. Let's keep an eye on things, shall we? Spice of MKE on Twitter. Talk to us about what you see and text us on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 29 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on Spice FM, on KTN Home Online. This and every morning, you have CT Muga, Ndu Oko, and Eric Latif. So, this is the statement that was issued by Raila Odinga yesterday. I'm not going to read the whole of it. I'm just going to abridge it. So, he basically talks about knowing about the Parliament, the attempt by Parliament to criminalize Hustler versus Dynasties narrative. He says, Deputy President William Ruto's Hustlers versus Dynasties campaign slogan and proposing severe fines, jail time, and even removal from office for any leader who propagates it. As he has explained on several occasions, Raila, he says, the Hustler versus Dynasties is a dangerous slogan. It's scary in its similarity to Adolf Hitler's National Socialism, most often referred to as Nazism, the ideology of the Nazi Party, which ruled Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945. Nazism profiled German society on the lines of race, social classes, and tribe. These ideologies caused a great deal of trauma to Germany and the world. They ended in the Holocaust. And he says, I fear the Hustlers versus Dynasties narrative will have the same deadly consequences for Kenya as Nazism did for Germany. However, I would strongly appeal to members of Parliament to drop any attempt to legislate against this otherwise deadly slogan. As a country, we fought for and should respect free speech and association. We should also be able to allow the Deputy President and his team to continue with their chosen slogan without any inhibitions. Those of us who see its dangers should continue educating our people against falling for it. I have faith that Kenyans will see through this divisive and potentially deadly rhetoric and its attacks on fellow Kenyans and reject it in the end. So he says he can clearly see this, and he remembers history in Nazi Germany. And he says this will, he does not say could. He says, I fear the hustlers versus dynasties narrative will have the same deadly consequences for Kenya as Nazism did for Germany. But he says he wants to strongly urge members of parliament not to legislate and criminalize this, because we have fought for and we should respect free speech and association. So if clearly this hustler dynasty narrative is dangerous, if it could take us to a point where we really do not want to go, if it could take us to a point where we are written in history books as a country that degenerated and slaughtered its own, the people slaughtered one another based on class, then why not take decisive action against it? Why not criminalize it? Criminalizing it does not stop you and everybody else who thinks that it's dangerous from going ahead and campaigning against it, from going ahead and saying, people, we have an issue, yes, we have people who feel disenfranchised, yes, we can address it this way. It doesn't stop you, but it stops right on their tracks those who are moving the country towards that dangerous path. Why did we criminalize hate speech? It's freedom of expression. I can come in here and I talk it the way I feel because I feel strongly that way. But why do we criminalize it? Because we've seen the consequences of it. In 2007, before you come in, CT, before we started seeing the nonsense that we saw in December 2007, we had already started seeing pockets of it earlier in parts of the country.
Started in 1992 to be
There
precise.
you go.
Then it happened again in 97.
All this thing of, these people have come and taken our land. These people do not belong here. We are the ones who belong here. This is our part of the country. They should go back to their part. This started like that. It's freedom of expression. By the time it was graduating to be called Madoadoa, it was still freedom of expression, but we saw the dangers of it. And that's why it's criminalized in the NCIC Act to say you cannot utter hate speech on somebody based on their tribe. Now, here is the issue of class. If you can see the danger, why not criminalize it?
If you have organs of state that are supposed to deal with such issues, and they appear to be fairly toothless, if indeed you want this thing to go, anything that already exists, if you want it to be dealt with our judicial system, then there are steps that must be taken. For instance, let's just start with those 41 judges let's start with that one and look at others. How do you strengthen the police force? How do you strengthen the NCIC? All these organs that we have, the Anti-Corruption Commission, how do we strengthen all these bodies so that they can actually do their work? Because if they are empowered to do their work, one. Secondly, what is giving rise to this narrative being so palatable? It simply means this issue of youth employment is not something that should just be talked about. It must be addressed. And the youth must see that their plight is being addressed. If their plight is being addressed, this narrative will not hold sway. How will it hold sway? Who will you be against? What are you going to be talking about? So long as people are unemployed and there is no hope, because the issue here is hope.
Yeah.
Somebody with an alternative hope narrative will unfortunately hold sway. You will criminalize the hustler narrative. They'll come up with another narrative which is not called hustler, but they'll be saying more or less the same thing. And you know why? It's not what they're saying. It is what the recipients of that message are interpreting it as. Therein lies the danger. It means that feeling, it's not as though the deputy president created the difference. It was there.
He's just riding on it.
Yes. And the feeling that some people are benefiting at our expense, he didn't create it. It has been there. Now, unfortunately, this is where now the lie comes in. He, the deputy president, has been part and parcel of this same government who are being blamed for these things. But he wants to cleverly extricate himself from it so that it's other people other than him. But in my mind, it seems to be a trend because there's always someone else to blame.
Yes.
Always. someone else to blame.
There's always an excuse.
There's always someone who has to be blamed for these things.
For something else.
If it isn't Raila, it is Uhuru, it is... Time for talk should actually be brought to a halt. And we used to talk about this national dialogue. The national dialogue for addressing this youth issue must take place.
Yeah.
Because it is a problem. If it isn't addressed, you can criminalize the hustle narrative.
All you want.
All you want, and then add some. But the feelings that young people have, that they've been neglected and the interests are not being taken care of, you are leaving that particular population vulnerable to anybody who comes along with the simplest message of hope. Even if that hope is actually geared towards you feeling that the person who is spewing that particular message is the one who is the only one who can give you that hope. But then that's politics again, is it not?
It is.
Yes.
0719-012-600 would like you to call in and tell us, do you agree with those that say that there's no need to criminalize the hustler versus dynasty narrative? That's not it. That there's no need to criminalize any talk that inflames tensions based on class. That there's no need to have that put in law. Do you agree with those that say that? 0719-012-600. Jimmy in Malindi, good morning.
Good morning to you. I hope all of you are well.
We are well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
Just jumping straight to the matter, I can say there is the role of parliament in the Kenyan constitution that governs even the parliament itself.
Yes.
And what does the role of parliament say? First, let me go to your question. It's true. It's not right to have to just leave narratives which can cause problems and can cause division. You see, because the president is a role of unity of the nation. He plays a very big role. He's a symbol of unity of the nation. And the deputy president is among and the person also in that kind of symbol.
Yeah.
And parliament's role is, if you look at number 94 of the Kenyan constitution, the role of parliament, the legislative, this is what it says, and I quote, of the republic derived from the people. And at the national level, comma there, from the people, there's an end, comma, and at the national level, comma, is vested in and exercised by parliament.
Yep.
Parliament manifests the diversity of the nation, comma, represents the will of the people and exercise their sovereignty. Full stop. Let me just end there.
Yes.
Parliament is supposed to be looking at what is the will of the people. But what Parliament is doing now, this is a I can say some of the things that the Parliament passed, it is against the Constitution because they don't look
Jimmy,
at the will of the people.
Narrowing down to the issue and answering it directly, should the issue of hustler versus dynasty narrative be criminalized or not? Yes or no?
There is no way you can criminalize such a narrative if you are telling me a narrative that says kill the rich, poor kill the rich, that one you can criminalize it. Or the rich kill the poor, you can criminalize it. But hustler, you cannot criminalize hustler, Bana.
Okay.
You know why? Let me tell you. Just a moment. Let me tell you why. In this constitution, there is a group which is called the marginalized group.
Yes.
Don't we have the marginalized group?
Yes.
Can we say that the constitution now is also bringing division? There are things which you can criminalize and there are things which you cannot criminalize. Look, 42 against 1. It was a narrative that was used and everybody was quiet. But for this reason now...
Was it right or was it wrong?
Has come up with a hustler. Yeah?
Was it right?
It's wrong.
So
what? It was not right. It was not right. That's what I'm saying. There are things which you can criminalize and there are things which you cannot criminalize. You see, but if you see something that is working against you, you can always look for a mistake.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you very much. 0719-012-600. We'd like to hear what you think. Do you think there is merit in actually criminalizing the hustler versus dynasty narrative? And this basically is saying criminalizing any talk that seems to inflame or excite people or incite people on the basis of class. This is a question we are asking this morning. Raila Odinga says, okay, this particular narrative is dangerous, but there's freedom of expression and we should allow people to express themselves. What you should also be doing is coming up with a counter narrative that says this is why you shouldn't buy into this narrative. Let's hear from Solomon in Kisumu. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today, Solomon?
I'm very fine.
Thank you. What do you make of this?
As for me, I'm saying that unless we don't know the meaning of hustler to differentiate hustler and dynasty. Because for me, I can't say that someone calls himself a hustler when he's been in the office for almost 7.5 years. So I think citizens should just make the right choice and just know what is right from what is wrong.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Solomon. Samuel in Kisii.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning to you, sir.
How are you today?
I'm fine, sir.
Do you support this move by the National Assembly to criminalize hustler?
Yes, I do support. Absolutely, I support.
Why?
It is dividing the country. These politicians, we matched every time and then looking for means of dividing people so that they get majority to vote for them. So I think it is to be criminalized so that we have a level where people are equal. Because these people are cheating us every time and then we vote us.
So what would be criminal there? What would you describe as being criminal?
The sentiments they use, actually they know where the poverty level is. They come in stepping behind it that they are not the ones who are causing the troubles in this country. So I think it is criminal actually to come and cheat us every time and then to mobilize people to follow them.
Okay. Thank you, Samuel.
Yeah.
Asante sana. Richard in Thika, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I am good. How are you guys?
We are well, thank you.
Now, I would like to contribute. I would like to distinguish between the sentiment and the politics.
Okay.
The sentiment that there are people who have been more advantaged in our society, that exists. And there are always politicians who will take advantage of that.
Okay.
That's like what happened in America with Trump. There was a whole block of Americans who felt that the government didn't work for them. And he came and sold the narrative that I am your guy. It's the same thing happening in Kenya. It's just that our politicians are just our politicians.
Okay.
They're taking advantage of an existing sentiment because for the longest time, people feel like government doesn't work for them.
So that is that's a sentiment under politics.
Yes.
Is any of them criminal?
No. It can be weaponized, it can be dangerous. But the solution is never to suppress it.
Okay.
The solution is usually solve the problem. We need people to feel that they are part of the country. We need people to feel that it matters to be Kenyan.
Okay. Richard, we hear you. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you very much.
Let's hear from Tijini Utawala. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well today.
Yeah, I'm fine and I'm lucky and maybe happy to talk to you people today. How is everybody in the studio?
We're
good. We are very well, thank you.
Okay. First, I'd like to contribute to this motion.
Yes.
And today I'd like to introduce myself again as an presidential aspirant, a cobbler, and a party leader of Accountability and Transparency Party. So as a leader, as you are trying to advance your ideology towards gaining power
Yeah.
is something that we practice in politics every day. Because you see, Orange Democratic Movement were having their own ideology, Jubilee were having their own ideology, and that's why they are going out selling their ideology to people for them to be elected. But in class ideology and these other hustlers and dynasty, of course, it's a real thing that, of course, we have so many people who are suffering, as either in the name of hustlers, many people, common people who are feeling that pain.
Yes.
It's true. It's not wrong. It's true. But when now you are trying to advance this, it's like this narrative that the president wanted to create, that there are two tribes that have ruled this country for long, now another tribe has to rule, you see? It's the same ideology these people are trying to propagate, you see? But what is the end result of this? Because at the end of the day, these hustlers, or that these two tribes, are living in this country. And when you become a president, you're a president to all of them, you see? Now, will you only rule hustlers and not rule dynasty?
No,
will
you
you only
won't.
rule two tribes and leave other tribes out? Are you seeing this?
So how do you
So
do you see a danger? Let's just go into. Do you see the danger that Raila is saying, that this kind of narrative portends danger to the country? Number two, how do you address then that?
Of course, this danger seriously, because you see, when a group of people feeling like they are not part of the government, is like the danger that was posed by Raila swearing in himself, and these supporters were feeling like we are not part of this government, these people are stealing from us, you see? And the only way to sort out this is the government to actually implement projects and address the concerns of these people who are feeling like they are isolated from government. That include health opportunity, job opportunities, empowerment, and those other things. That's the responsibility of the deputy president, the president, and even that Raila. It's their responsibility to do that.
Thank you, Tijin. Thank you very much. Lawyer Okello in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
I hope you're having a good start of your day.
Yes, we are.
Great. Words can always be weaponized. And I think the danger in words is when they are not properly defined, then you have a problem. Because take example of dynasty. What exactly is a dynasty? My definition of dynasty, probably from my place of practice, my definition of dynasty is
Okello,
a family that has ruled all through. Now, you see, when somebody says there are hustlers versus dynasty, then there is a problem, because there are some people who will define themselves as so-called hustlers, and some others who will define themselves as so-called dynasty. So that you find when there are accidents happening, for example, with the motorcycles and vehicles, the motorcycle fellows were calling themselves hustlers, and they are calling some fellow who is taking a loan on a vehicle and is probably still paying that loan.
Okello, if I may interrupt you, you are a lawyer.
Yes.
Do you really think that the legislation that is being talked about should be put into effect? Should we legislate against this hustler narrative?
I don't think if you target it as hustler and whatever narrative, you will be doing yourself a service. I think
Why?
we have already legislated against discriminatory and hate speech issues. So that if there is hate speech that is being propagated by the hustler, whatever narrative, it will be caught up by the act. You see, when you say
no need to legislate again.
There is no need to legislate, because when you say that you are legislating for this particular issue, it looks like you're targeting someone. While there are other people who are also giving their narratives, which may be dangerous. That's why I say words can be dangerous, and they need to have proper definition. That's why I started with that.
Point made, Okello. Thank you very much for your contribution. Let's still stay in Mombasa and hear from John Joroge. Good morning, John.
Good morning, sir.
How are you today, John?
How are you guys?
We are fine.
I'm fine, thank you.
Should we legislate against this?
It's my answer to that is no. The reason to it is because it's being used because somebody else somewhere is scared. And people are scared of the narration, the narrative, Because in the dictator's manual, it's well known that any president and or the ruling cabal, they have to rule people who are poor. For you to be able to control people, you have to impoverish them. Then it becomes very easy for you to control them. Once a person sees that gap and tries to educate those people who are poor, that they're not poor by default, but by design, somebody somewhere becomes agitated. And that's exactly what's happening now. So I agree with his counsel, Orengo and Raira. We shouldn't go there.
Okay.
We should look at the issues that makes people become hustlers in their own nation.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
You're
Let's
welcome.
hear from Abdallah in Marsabit. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
How are you today, Abdallah?
Very good. How are you doing, all of you?
Good, thanks.
Well,
Very
thank
well.
you.
Okay, the issue of criminalizing the hustler movement is just targeting about some, some typical politicians of Kenya, because all of our politicians are the same. For example, now if you are targeting hustler movement, particularly you are targeting some people, and politicians, for the sake of themselves, they are not doing anything for the for the benefits of most Kenyans. They are targeting for only themselves, particularly. And if we say criminalizing them, it's about targeting some people and making others benefit. For example, if politician, if I speak about, for example, the ruling government, I will obviously be targeted by the government and because they have more advantage than me over powers. I think it's not good for this. And we Kenyans and the politicians, majority of Kenyans are illiterate. We are ignorant. Because of this. I think it's not good for Kenyans and for the move by the National Assembly to criminalize.
So let people speak.
Yeah, people will speak, and they know people are ignorant there. They have no knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abdallah. Have a lovely day in Marsabit.
Okay, same. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
All right.
Cheers.
So as you hear all these comments, and there are also others that are coming in on social media and what people are saying on social media. You want to read that comment by James Achola?
Okay, well, I don't know where to start. Okay, history and understanding, it lays the basis for all disciplines and subjects. If you don't understand history before you begin on any quest, you're doomed, whether it's politics, science, biology. Okay, your first port of call is always history, and Kenyans have failed miserably. Okay, I'm not quite sure where that's going. But all right, let's look at...
It was actually in two parts, I guess. It was 3 parts or so, right? So basically just saying we need to look back at where the origin
it all started from.
The origin, why is there... Why do we have such a sentiment in the country? Why is this sentiment there in the country? Then address the issues. But at the same time, so TJRC was one of those things that was called one of the Agenda 4 commissions after the 2008 post-election violence. And what it meant to do was look at the root cause of the problems that were boiling over in 2007, 2008. Okay? Go around the country, listen to the issues, address the historical injustices. That report should have gone to Parliament to be discussed in Parliament and then gets implemented. It has not gone to the Parliament stage. How many years later? So many years later. So the issue that was there that was causing the tribal animosity, the one that was resonating with people when they were saying 41 versus 1, is still there. It hasn't been addressed. So should we say that, no, let's leave it in the goodwill of politicians, of those in power, to address the issues of why people are feeling that they don't have access to opportunities and giving them the opportunities, while at the same time we should allow them to speak freely as they do. Because as you do that, you're basically fanning that. You're fanning that animosity.
Well, I think we've already seen, and it's very clear, that every time well, not even every time, naturally, people are going to say whatever comes to their minds. And usually the brain-to-mouth filter is not put in function. and everybody's going to say whatever they want. And we've also seen the results of striking that match, igniting that flame, whereby you say something and you see the kind of response you get from those who are listening to you. And I'm not saying that it's the words that people speak that should be stopped, but I think that what is being looked at here is the danger, the potential of what could come about as a result of those words being spoken. And the only thing that you can do about that then is to stop it from being said.
You know, the conditioning took place. If you simply juxtapose the views that have been expressed by politicians in central Kenya about Raila Odinga and that this enchantment that the so-called voter has with Raila, this thing isn't false, it is real. In the same way, when Eric talks about the Madoadoa and the politics and the narrative that led to people feeling that they could actually evict, kill, burn people who had been their neighbors for decades, it meant that narrative had taken hold. It didn't start during the period we're seeing. It had been there for some time. But it also brought about profiling. The problem with this narrative is the profiling element of it. Now, then the thing that is completely out of your control is the interpretation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's that interpretation is where the problem is, and the owners of the narrative seem just to be enjoying riding the wave.
Yes,
because they're not coming back to say, "You guys,
they
don't.
This
is what we meant." They just say, "Guys are excited by this."
The owners of the narrative also understand the problem. But that's why I said it's a clear shirking.
The owners of this narrative are part of the problem.
It's a clear shirking of responsibility when it comes to what can you actually do to solve the problem. But they're riding on the fact that they can.
Let's take a break on KTN Home. 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. But keep it right here on KTN Home. We'll be back. Shortly, we'll be speaking with an expert who will be explaining to us this new taxation by the government through the Kenya Revenue Authority. There's something called the Digital Services Tax. What is that? Keep it right here. Our conversation continues. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So we had to take this break on KTN Home, but the conversation continues. Eric Mousau from the Standard Investment Bank will be joining us in the next hour. For now, as we conclude on this, so for you, yes or no? Don't put it in law.
No. Strengthen the laws that we already have and institutions that are supposed to implement these things. Because the institutions came about as a result of something that you mentioned. The Truth and the Justice, the Kriegler report, all those things. These aren't issues that we haven't dealt with before in this country. We have. Just implement the things that we said we should do. It'll put a direct halt to this sort of nonsense that we're seeing.
Don't over-legislate. Basically, I wish we were amending the NCIC Act to give more powers to the NCIC.
I would support that immediately.
To say that now NCIC, you can take this, and this will be the threshold for evidence before courts. And then the judges can then look and say, all right, I'm allowed to consider this as threshold for evidence, and then I can proceed. But right now, laws. It's the same politicians who know that they are the problem, and they will not allow that to happen. They'll not put it in law. That's a problem.
I say that there are deeper issues. This what we see right now. The whole conversation is just bubbling on the top. The deeper issues, the real wound is much deeper. And if everybody would focus, if the focus would be on sorting out the problem that brings about these feelings of disenfranchisement, of disenchantment, whatever it is, deal with the issue that brings out these feelings, then you have nothing to ride on. Then you wouldn't have these narratives in the first place if you dealt with those issues. Can you imagine if you had a conducive environment through which people could do business, through which people could get jobs? You could do that. You wouldn't have to build this narrative. You wouldn't.
All right, keep it right here. In the next hour, we have a conversation about the digital services tax and the other taxes that the government is raising and how that impacts you as an individual or as an owner of an SME. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, right after ATL is jam-packed
Traffic.
on Mombasa Road, out and inbound. It's not moving well. Moving very, very slowly. Juja Road flowing well, no traffic there at all. Looking on looking on Jogo Road, getting out towards the CBD via Landis Road. It's slow into the CBD, but not too bad. So where we're seeing the main problems today, Mombasa Road, and quite some on Thika Road as well. Coming off of Kiambu Road, it's going to take a while, and then joining with Muthaiga Square. Pagani Underpass, getting then out towards Ngara and into the CBD, flowing but very slow, especially when you get to Ngara. Wangari Maathai Road is also an option for you to get into the city. The bypass is working well. A little bit of traffic on the southern. We'll take a look at that in a bit. All right. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Talk to us there or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
As we begin this third hour of the show, today's proverb.
Character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it forever. What I actually said was it cannot be hidden forever.
Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever.
No, it can't. You may want to, but it can't.
Okay. That's very true. Thank you very much. So we are going to be having a conversation about the digital services tax and the impact this is likely to have on SMEs. Remember, the digital services tax came into effect, was it on the 5th of January or around there, or the 3rd of January, at the beginning of January. And the first time that now you start filing for GST as you're filing your returns is this month, by the 20th of February. So let's understand, what is digital services tax? Who is liable for digital services tax? But also we'll expand the conversation to go into the other new taxes, for example, the minimum tax. And what does that basically mean? And when should you be paying for it? And what kind of impact is it likely to actually have on businesses? Are businesses going to be able to still continue thriving? Or are businesses going to have a problem with their operations? Right? So this is a conversation that we'll have. But before we get there, Ndu, just maybe you can sample some of those 2 or 3 comments that we're seeing on the previous conversation.
Okay, according to Aguk, the hustler narrative is the greatest deception in the Kenyan history. It excites the poor masses but doesn't offer any solid socio-economic solutions to poverty and unemployment epidemic. Well, there you go. Becky says, if the hustler narrative is criminalized, then we are headed towards a replica of the bread revolution in the 18th century France. The government must address massive corruption and create equal opportunities for all in practice as it is paper. Well, look, I mean, those are the issues that we are dealing with. You can talk about it until you're red in the face. But if you're not going to deal with the issues, then there's a problem.
On the other hand, if you actually don't find a way for the citizens to express themselves and tell the government you have failed, you'll start criminalizing. You have to be patriotic. You cannot talk trash about your own government. Put it in law. You wait and see. Anyway, let's bring in our guest into the studio now. Eric Mousau is the Executive Director in charge of research at the Standard Investment Bank, and he now joins us in the studio. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
Yes.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Yes.
That is called the hot seat.
Oh my goodness.
It's not. It's just.
It's not even warm. It's just a seat.
It's just a seat.
I can see all the red colors.
Bahas. Bahas. When you see red, I mean, we are going to talk about KRA, and therefore we are going to be talking about the red color.
Yes.
There's new taxes that have been introduced this year that were not there last year, Before we narrow down into each of them, just tell us, broadly, what are these new taxes?
Okay, so for the most part, when you're talking about the main one, which has been a big issue, has been the digital services tax. And when you look at the history of digital services tax, it's because of what has been happening globally in terms of economies. So previously, a lot of the trade happening between countries was actually mainly goods. So you had people moving goods from one country to the next and so forth. And if you look at, for example, even in media, you had issues, most historically you had news being spread mainly from, let's say, newspapers. But now increasingly there is digitization, which has really made a big difference in industries. And for tax collection as well, that has also been the case. The impact might not have been severe in Kenya, but in some other countries, corporate tax has actually reduced. And if you look at corporate tax reducing, governments are trying to figure out how do they tap into this digital economy as a new source of tax. And so this has been a major issue, and that's when you are seeing KRA being a little bit more proactive and starting now to tap into the digital economy in order to be able to tax people playing in this space in almost a similar manner as people playing in the goods space.
Are we saying that previously there was no such tax in any form whatsoever?
Yes, hardly. The digital services tax is really a new tax, and it's really focusing on the new economy.
All right. Give us examples of digital activities or digital business or digital services.
So, for example, if you look at Facebook, and maybe Facebook today, there's news in Australia about them shutting sort of media houses. So advertising, for example, historically would come through a newspaper in the country, and maybe government or the journalists would get their news through that mechanism. Now you have Facebook, which is very dominant globally, and it's able to serve advertising in a much wider platform, even and across different countries. So you can host the Facebook technology in one country, maybe a low-cost jurisdiction, and then serve out advertisements across different countries. And in a way, this content will not be chargeable. You have issues like Uber, although Uber now is Uber Kenya, there is Uber Kenya. But you can think about the technology where it's hosted, and then when you think about how you need to tax it, it becomes a little bit difficult, because from a corporate tax perspective, they are not domiciled in your country. So it's important to differentiate it. It's not a value-added tax. It's in a way, it's a corporate tax. So if you're based in Kenya and you pay the digital services tax, it's really an advance of your corporate tax.
Okay.
So strictly speaking, it shouldn't really have an impact. It's just an advance tax, and then you can offset it against your corporate tax. But if you're not based out of, let's say, Kenya, it means this is an amount you pay to the Kenya to KRA in order to be able to do your activities in the country. Yeah.
So who I think I really want to get to, Eric, who is being affected by this? Who runs what doing? Because people are going to be sitting right here listening and saying to themselves, how does this affect me then? And am I going to be required to pay something come the 20th? Am I going to be required to pay something by virtue of the fact that I'm using social media? Am I selling goods via? Am I selling on the internet? Am I selling via an app? Am I falling into this space? Very clearly, who's affected?
Yeah, so if you are selling goods through a platform, so the platform itself is the one being targeted. So strictly speaking, the only risk is if they passed on, for example, that tax in terms of higher commissions, or, so if it's Jumia or if it's maybe Amazon, they could decide, for example, to pass on the higher fee, what they could call a fee, but it's really a corporate tax to the people using the platform. But strictly speaking, that is really not the intention, and there's really a lot of debate globally in trying to get a harmonized tax system for services. So, for example, so historically we've always had a harmonized system on goods, but services have always eluded tax authorities, and there's been a lot of discussion to try and come up with a harmonized mechanism. And
You're
you
talking
can
about digital services here.
Yes, digital.
Not just other services.
Not just other services.
Yes.
And one of the key issues is that you can understand why it could be problematic to multinationals, because if you are a Facebook and you have like 50 countries, each with their own digital services tax, it means every time somebody posts an advertisement, you kind of need to track where each advertisement has been viewed from, and therefore pay that relevant tax for each country. That's why, as an ideal way, you need a harmonized system the way we have it for goods. And services is not the same as goods in the same way, because when goods are coming in, even if you have different regimes, it's easier to manage that because the goods are just
there's a port of entry.
Yes, but now for digital, it becomes very complicated, and that's why they're trying to target. If you have an e-learning platform, for example, how do you pay tax on it, and how do you normalize the playing field between a company operating locally and providing the service locally, and a company operating locally and offering the service on an international basis. So ultimately that was really the main objective, and it's a major debate going in terms of trying to get consensus as to how that's going to be done.
You said that KRA is being proactive in this, in going all out and saying, all right, so let's start by introducing this.
Yes.
But have they invested in the back end to have the infrastructure to be able to monitor and enforce this taxation?
Well, they say they've made it easy for foreign companies offering platforms to be able to pay the tax, because that's one of the key challenge because the fee itself, the figure itself is not really big per se in itself. I think a country like France had suggested 3%. I think the figures could be high in other countries. So in itself, the figure is not big, but it's the logistics and the impact when it's implemented on a wide scale that's going to that's really a concern. And one has to think about, for example, also Kenyan companies trying to operate in other countries, because also we are assuming we are net recipients of services, but it may well be that Kenyan technology companies are domiciled in Kenya, and they want to offer services across the border, maybe in Uganda or in Tanzania, or even across Africa or the world. There's the technology initiatives around Kenya quite significant. So there's a need to ensure that even as we discuss trade in goods, your tea, your coffee, your flowers, there's need to also now consider how do we get a harmonized position on the people providing services, so that it also makes it easy for our companies to be able to trade globally. Of course, at the moment, the main concern is that those taxes are mainly targeting U.S. companies, which are dominant on the space. If you think about your Microsoft, your Google, and so forth. But there's no reason to think about the future and Kenyan companies providing services to other countries, and what kind of environment they would face when they go outside the country.
And already there are Kenyan companies that are offering digital services, being domiciled here, but they're offering them maybe around the region or across Africa or to the world. When you think about these digital services, we could categorize them, and there's some people who would look at it from the main digital companies, like now the way you said, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest. And then you can look at e-commerce platforms. For example, you think about the Jumia, Alibaba, Gigi, and the others.
Yes.
Now, if we just come into the e-commerce platforms, for example, Jumia is offering a platform where individual merchants come and sell their goods through this platform.
Yes.
So it's basically this shop, and you've taken up a stall.
Yes.
So who is to pay the tax? Is it I, the merchant, or is it Jumia, the platform?
It's Jumia, the platform. That is paying the tax, essentially.
Okay.
Remember, I think one of the other things to just remember is that if you're operating in Kenya, there are certain taxes that you're already obligated to take. So just because you close your shop, your physical shop, and go online doesn't mean you avoid paying VAT, or doesn't mean you avoid having pay as you earn. There are those other obligations which were already there in legislation in the first place.
Yeah.
Of course, now for KRA, it's a lot easier to track you if you're suddenly online, because they're able to see you. You probably can't disappear per se, and that's also another angle, because most of the, especially small and medium enterprises, maybe they started off small under the radar, and so carrier couldn't resource wise was just difficult to reach them. But then suddenly now when they're on an e-commerce platform, all these other taxes start applying to them. So of course Jumia would still pay its the fee, that the advanced tax, essentially the digital services tax, but it also means they can provide the data to KRA in the course of them paying for that digital services tax. And at that point, KRA can be able to see, oh, these are your merchants, and then look at the details. Okay, have these merchants been complying? Because also KRA doesn't want people to close the physical shops and go online and avoid all the other taxes that are supposed to be paid in the first place. So there's that element as well. Those taxes already existed, and they were already in law, and it's things that should have been complied by SMEs in the past. And I think that's also another angle, because most SMEs, especially when you're selling a few things online, you're thinking maybe this is really not much, it's maybe a side thing, but then KRA kind of wants to have its share in all this.
One of the things that was mentioned about you is that you're an investment banker.
Yes.
I really want to understand, what is investment banking?
Well, investment banking is, we're essentially an intermediary, and we're able to link up investors with people who want to provide capital. So if you want to make any investment and you come to us, we can potentially direct you to a variety of investment options. Just in the same way banks link depositors and lenders, for investment banks, we link providers of capital and investments. So that's kind of the analogy that I would put in a nutshell.
I'm going to ask for an example.
So for example, if you want to in the simplest manner, to trade in equities or shares, you want to buy a Safaricom share, you come to us, we'll be able to facilitate you to buy shares of Safaricom in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. You want to invest in government securities, you come to us, we'll be able to facilitate that. In a more complicated manner, maybe not, if you are a company and you want to raise capital, and maybe you've reached a point you want to raise maybe 100, 200, 300 million, you come to us, we'll arrange the relevant documentation in compliance with the Capital Markets Authority, that's our regulator, and then we'll try and place your issue. Let's say if it's your shares, or if it's or if it's a bond you want to raise capital, we'll be able to find investors for you. If it's a public offer, means we can go out there and shout about it. And if it's a private offer, we kind of, there's a limit under the regulations as to how we can approach investors. And for us, we also have a new product recently, which we launched on our global markets platform. And this allows investors to be able to invest in global instruments indirectly. So they give us the funds, and we have a team of professionals in our asset management arm who are able to invest in foreign exchange instruments, indices, and so forth. And that the foreign exchange, and that is under the foreign exchange trading regulations. Because you remember previously there used to be a lot of people being conned about investing in the foreign exchange market, and so now there are regulations in place. So if you want to play in that space, you really have to be regulated, and those are the regulations that you are licensed to operate. So there are a number of things that an investment bank can offer, and those are some that we offered.
I want to ask you a question that is actually unfair.
Yes.
Is there any business, enterprise, or entity in this country that is not taxed?
I wouldn't think so. It's almost. I think they usually say, what are the two things which death and taxes?
Those are the two things that are sure.
Yeah, so if
certainties.
If you're probably not being taxed, you're probably breaking a rule somewhere. I'm almost certain of it.
Why I ask is this.
Yeah.
With this digital taxation that we're talking, digital services tax,
Yes.
do we have an idea of what the Kenya Revenue Authority hope to raise in terms of sums? Is there a target?
I don't know whether they have a target, but it could be significant. I mean, there's a lot more trade happening now on digital platforms. People are buying software online, even outside the country, and those companies providing the service in Kenya do not pay that service. Because, for example, if you go online and download a particular software and you pay for it using a credit card, that amount, that company, let's say in Europe or in the US, doesn't pay any tax. So in the current environment, what will happen is that for such a company, they'll have to actually pay tax on it. So if you think about the volume of e-commerce trade maybe that happens online, I think, and COVID has accelerated, the adoption of e-commerce and trading services. It's likely to be, wherever it starts, it's probably going to be going up over time. I would believe it's something that will grow quite significantly, probably in the billions.
Let's take a break at this point. We're having a conversation with Eric Mousau, Executive Director in charge of research at Standard Investments Bank. Coming to understand what digital services tax is all about, which SMEs are liable to pay this digital services tax, how you pay the digital services tax. Is it a new taxation? Is it part of, bigger, older tax? And then what impact is this likely to have on the thriving digital economy that we are seeing in the country? So very many people who are now launching their businesses online. Innovation is one of the things. Is this going to kill that innovation, or is it going to move it underground, or is it going actually to benefit the traders? Good morning, 23 minutes after 8. Let's take a break on KTN Home, on Spice FM and online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
There are so many people peddling what is false, and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na
nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right, we're looking at mostly sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning at 19 degrees, going to highs of 28 today. Highs will be 25 in Nyeri, 14 degrees and sunny at the moment. It's cloudy in Nakuru now at 18, going to highs of 29 through today. 16 degrees and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 26. 29 the high in Kisumu, mostly cloudy at 21. Mostly sunny conditions in Kakamega at 18 degrees, highs of 29 today and coming down to lows of 17. It's going to be mostly sunny in Mombasa today, at least for now, 26. Highs of 32 and lows of 24. Mostly cloudy in Malindi at 25. We'll see highs of 31. 27 will be the high in Kampala. Light rain this morning at 20. Mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 26, going to highs of 32. So 27 will be the high in Johannesburg. 21 and sunny at the moment, and it's mostly cloudy in Lagos at 25. The rain seems to have stopped, at least for now, going to highs of 34. Highs of 33 will be recorded in Kinshasa today. It's mostly sunny right now at 23.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
All right, from Gateway
Traffic
Road to the CBD, all the way through. It's bumper to bumper. It's not moving today on Mombasa Road. The cops are trying to do what they can to move traffic as much as they can, but we're looking at a bumper-to-bumper situation just there. It's not moving. We're also looking at Limuru Road, where it's clogged a little bit, right around the village market, and then trying to get out into the CBD as well. Coming out of Westlands, looking pretty good today. Either you're going to use the main highway or you're going to use the bypass. Either way will work for you, as it will on Langata Road. Coming out, if you use the southern bypass out through into the city or out towards Kikuyu, you're all right using that as well. Utawala, eastern bypass, looking good as well. Red Hill, coming out of Westlands, also behaving very well. Spice of MKE, talk to us on Twitter. Text 40127. Let us know what it looks like. Keep it moving this Thursday.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 27 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We are live on Spice FM, online and on KTN Home. In the studio, we have CT Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif, and we're joined by our guest this morning, Eric Mousau, who is the Executive Director in charge of research at Standard Investment Bank, understanding taxation, and especially this morning, the digital services tax. So, Eric, you're saying that this tax is basically an advanced tax on your income tax, your corporate tax.
Yes.
This is what it's not a new tax per se.
It's not
really an additional tax.
It's not an additional tax, and the main impact will be on multinationals, not based out of Kenya.
Okay.
Because if you're a Kenyan company, you're probably already paying some level of income tax. So yeah, it's really it shouldn't really have any impact per se on your normal businesses.
The only challenge here, though, is for the Kenyan companies that are operating online. So you have this company and you're operating, you're running your business online as, like you said, merchant here. You have presence on these platforms, or you're just basically taking advantage of a platform such as Facebook to advertise your business. Facebook even has a column for shops where you can actually go and sell. So you are also being targeted indirectly by this particular tax.
Well, I can see where you're saying it's
because I'm offering
targeted.
Digital services online, or I'm offering a product.
Offering goods.
I'm offering goods, but I'm selling through a digital platform.
So what KRA wants in terms of to differentiate you with the person who has opened a shop is that you're not paying rent. That should be really the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, if the goods have VAT, or if you need to, if you have employees, you need to pay as you earn. And annually you need to have your income tax filed. So that's all KRA wants to ensure that just by going digital, you're not avoiding all these other taxes. And of course, by introducing this, it means from a disclosure standpoint, KRA might be able to know who's operating some of these platforms. And it's not unusual KRA doing this. And we know in county governments, KRA just goes, finds who are the suppliers, and you go
they work backwards.
Yes, and then you because the county government provides the list of suppliers, they look at what kind of services were provided, and they counter check with their systems to confirm whether you've paid all the relevant taxes. And I think one also has to be aware about the bigger picture. You can imagine if you have two businesses, one which is fully complying with the relevant tax measures,
Yep.
and another which is avoiding paying tax. It means one business will be undercut and might even close almost unfairly when you think about it. And over time, it erodes the tax position of the country. And if you have a business which is not paying the relevant taxes, also it means it's probably not treating its employees in a particular way. There are all those, the SSF, NHIF. So the idea is to try and formalize the economy as much as possible. And if you look at, for example, our economy, the number of jobs created by the formal economy, it's roughly 10 to 20%, the formal economy. And for an economy to really do well, you can't have such a high level of informalism. You need these businesses to formalize and really move away from just being small businesses and really provide gainful employment. And for the country to be able to plan really, I mean, we talk about aid, but I think when you look about the impact of taxation as well, if you have good taxing capacity, you're able to do a lot more things as an economy. Of course, there are all those other issues about how the money is spent. But I think for KRA, they usually say that their work is to collect, and they're putting in the effort to collect.
The spenders, ask the spenders.
Ask the spenders how they're spending the money. But at the end of the day, there's really a case to ensure that that KRA does its work and it does fairly. And you can see even in most of the corruption scandals that we've seen in the past years, most of those companies were not tax compliant. You see somebody registering a company A Limited, B Limited. If you think about it, this is a company which is unlikely to be compliant. Because for each company, you need to have registered for VAT if you're supplying goods to the government. You need employees because you can't be turning over hundreds of millions of shillings without employees. You need to pay corporate tax. And also it reduces corruption. When you think about it, if you are paying taxes and compliant to the strictest sense, it's very difficult to be corrupt. Because if you are corrupt, you must pay that from in fact your dividends. And by the time you're making your dividend, it means you've paid 30% corporate tax and maybe a withholding tax. So by the end of the day, almost half the money really must, of every bribe that you're paying, if you're paying a bribe of 2 million, strictly speaking, on the gross, on the profit side, you must have generated at least 4 million.
I hear you saying then to build what would be looked at by many as a sustainable business environment in the country, then a lot of these businesses must be formalized. And formalization of business then invites things like taxes, which a lot of people, I don't know that they're afraid of paying tax, or a lot of companies are afraid of paying this tax, individual small businesses paying this tax, or afraid of what might be slapped on them in the future by the taxman, right? That's the fear that, all right, let me just operate in this little space where nobody can really see me because I don't know if they're going to come and take a chunk out of my earnings. How then do you balance this very, very valid concern by people who have small businesses who may want to operate within the rules of conformity by the taxman against a country that wants to be viable in terms of business economy?
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge, especially for SMEs, because most SMEs do not have that financial advisory or accountant in place to really tell them about the incentives. KRA assumes that, as any business, you've looked at all the rules and all the incentives that have been provided under the rules. And when you are filing, they assume you've already taken advantage of all those. Because, for example, KRA doesn't, you provide your details. KRA will only ask you to file on your profits. And it's self-declaration. You put all the details of what you do. If it's an employee you've paid, if you're paying them less than 24,000, I think it's zero tax. So it's just, what they want is for you to just file, because that doesn't really impact you that much. But I come to get a sense that sometimes SMEs do not know the advantages offered under the law. Sometimes it's also quite onerous for small businesses to file the numerous number of taxes. In fact, even on the ease of doing business as a country, while we've seen a very tremendous improvement, if you look at the element of doing taxation, of paying taxes, one of the key metrics there is how much time businesses in Kenya take to pay taxes.
Compliance is expensive, Eric.
Yes,
I'm telling you.
yes.
It's completely expensive. You
That's
want
true.
to comply, but it's expensive.
Not even expensive. It's cumbersome also.
Everything.
Yes. I'll tell you the figure. It's 180 hours as at the 2020 Ease of Doing Business report.
180 hours per SME.
Per SME?
Well, that's the average that was computed. And that's why, of course, when you think about ease of doing business rankings and you ask why are these things important, it's because when you go into the nitty-gritty, it really has major impact on businesses.
Yeah.
And one of the ways, if you look at the complexity of business, now you have this level of complexity from a tax perspective, and you have SMEs without professionals, because big organizations like the Standard, you could have an army of accountants just being able to track all these taxes
and tax advisory companies employed on retainer.
Yes. So, but you can imagine the challenge of an SME where it's just you, maybe 2-3 employees. It's a big challenge, and maybe one of the issues is how do you simplify the tax regime for SMEs? How do you make it easier for them to operate? So that because sometimes you realize you're a small business. If you get an accountant, you realize suddenly you are underwater because just the cost of compliance is almost taking all your profits.
Yeah,
and that's really something that KRA needs to look at. It's been trying. I mean,
how have they been trying? Can it not be made easier? I mean, let's if we can look at this just really simply.
Yes.
Somebody runs a business
Yes.
that sells one product through the year, Monday to Monday. Why can it not be made as simple as possible, from the literacy to the actual operation to the execution? Why can't it be made simple? And if we're talking about formalizing the entire informal sector, for example, just that sector without looking at anything else, why can't it be really as simple as ABC? Why must it be so difficult? Why must it be so cumbersome? Can you imagine 180 hours over 365 years taken out to do, 365 days taken out to do something like this?
Yeah, I think
and it makes it, for me, short of wanting to sound illegal, it makes sense to me then why people will say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to bother.
It's a big concern, and they that's why at some point they introduced the turnover tax. So the turnover tax was to try and sort of limit the documentation level required, so that just based on your turnover, pay a percentage of that, and you're okay. And then I think they limited the turnover.
But does turnover have any reflection on the profit that you make?
No, it doesn't, and that's now the other issue, because now some businesses might be happy with the turnover tax, but some businesses, based on their margins, will not be happy with that. So for them, that will not work for them. And that's why. And then you also had the other initiative they had was on rental tax, because remember, rental tax previously used to be 30% of your profits, and a landlord needed to do all these calculations, expenses, depreciation. So they said, okay, if you're a landlord, you own properties. I think you earn a rental income of less than a certain amount per year, then you can pay 10% on the gross amount. And don't bother keeping books, or we won't look at your books. And that has had a big impact, especially on rental income, because now if you are a landlord and you're earning 100,000 on your property, you just know, okay, 10% of 100,000, it's 10,000 shillings, and you pay every month.
Yeah.
It's a much easier tax, and they've had success, for example, in the bucket of landlords, and that has worked quite well. They've been trying to rope in the county governments to try and see can businesses pay some of these taxes through
the business permits.
Through the business permits. So the initiatives have been there, but of course if you need to pay, if you have now employees, it's a bit of a challenge, because it means you have pay as you earn. So on a monthly basis, you need to do pay as you earn. If you are doing viable goods, you need to do VAT.
Yes.
And then you need to do NSSF, NHIF.
Yes.
In fact, if you look very carefully at the rules, you have other trainings, other levies to really comply to the dot. And you realize all these things, you go to different platforms. Of course, KRA, you do maybe pay as you earn, VAT and income tax.
Then you go to NSSF.
You go to NSSF.
You go to NHIF.
Platform,
and then
you
go
pay.
to NITA.
Then NSSF, you go there and
National
do
Industrial Training Institute.
Yes.
You pay.
So you can imagine as an SME, it's almost impossible to be fully compliant. And you can imagine the challenge. It means this SME can never bid for government business. The only people who can give business is because if you ask for a certain level of formalization because you want to assist, let's say, the youth, but if they can't comply with a lot of these regulations, they'll never be able to qualify to even get to essentially access one of the biggest spenders in the country.
So isn't it in the interests then of a body like KRA or even other government agencies, isn't it in their interest for people to be compliant? And in order to be compliant, then it's in their interest to actually make the steps a little bit easier.
Yes.
For businesses to actually be able to follow and not have to do 1,000 platforms to be able to pay this, that, the other thing. You want people to be compliant, right? It makes your job easier. You have more in terms of income. Isn't it in their best interest to do this?
It is, and they've been trying. I mean, they're all in these initiatives. If you read the details, they say, we are working towards digitization. We want to make it easier. Maybe there was an initiative to try and bring in all the taxes and your NSSF and NHIF in one platform. I think that's one of the initiatives, so that if you pay, you just pay once.
Okay.
You just fill in all the details, and then you pay once. My sense is that sometimes maybe it's not the government to do everything. It's to, for example, if they have an open systems from a technological platforms providing, for example, open APIs, and allow innovators to link into government systems securely, and let different innovators come up with different ideas as to how let people compete as to how they can make it easy for SMEs or any business to actually comply. So, because if you do that, it may well be possible that a private business might be better at trying to figure out how to make it easy for businesses to pay tax, and at the end of the day, as you mentioned, it will be for the benefit.
Sure.
To their credit, though, let's just give credit where it's due. KRA periodically goes all out. For example, they'll conduct all these trainings, seminars, and workshops. Come to KRA. We are now today training you on how to comply on VAT, how to do this and the other, how to file this and understanding this and that. But they require you to take your time off your business to go to their office and spend time learning, and then you go back and start complying. Now, my feedback to them is, come on. You want somebody to basically just drop everything that they're doing every week. They'll be coming for one training or the other.
They will not come.
You need to make it easier for people to comply. On the other hand, they also go all out again to start advertising and using, digital platforms, for example, on these digital services tax, to have influencers who will go out and convey the message that this is what is happening. Using people like Eric Mousau, for example, go and explain to people what digital services tax is all about. Good way of doing it. But they're all disjointed. And in the end, you have already started, you have brought in a law, you're already implementing it, and that's the time when you're training people to comply with it. You can imagine the kind of confusion that there has been. Turnover tax was confusion last year. Then there was minimum tax, confusion. Then there is now digital services tax, confusion. And it doesn't matter. After the 20th, penalties start accruing. Come on. Isn't there a better way that this can be done?
I think also as citizens, we need to really look at our constitutional roles quite significantly. Before these regulations are implemented, normally they are published in advance. They usually ask for feedback. There are some which sort of come in, but by that time they still have to go to Parliament. They are debated. Of course, we have the ones who've elected people in Parliament to make a decision. Some of those decisions So at the end of the day, also,
so someone
if you
can
look
tick
at
a
it-
box somewhere and say, look, there have been opportunities for public participation here, here, and here. There have been opportunities for the citizen to engage and understand the law here, here, and there. And I have no obligation to make sure that they do that, to make sure that they understand.
I mean, they try. I mean, I guess the question, and the question, like, for example, of online training, I've seen them. They're now doing like online training because sometimes you see the emails. I'm sure sometimes people worry, if I go for this training, will they take my
I've
details
exposed myself.
and start following me? but I think you can just join anonymous. I don't think the trainings are usually quite separate from, and they're really doing it genuinely.
Right.
So sometimes I think also there's that history. And when you've had engagements with them and you've had a trouble and you just go in advance and explain, you realize it's manageable and they actually want to enhance compliance.
But you see, Eric, for that to happen, they need to communicate what you're saying. You see, you can do all these wonderful things, but if people don't know about them, or better still, they don't understand them, they're not useful. Okay? I like giving an example of the Central Bank of Kenya when they wanted to change our banknotes. That campaign, I still marvel at the beauty of that campaign. You cannot say you are not informed. They used every avenue possible to ensure people got to understand. They said to understand the deadlines, to understand what they were doing, to understand what you needed to do, the time you're given to. All that was done. Now, KRA has a very specific job, just collect money from people. Now, surely these people you collect money from, don't you think you do a far better job with far less resistance if you had some understanding which emanated from you? Because if you don't tell them and you don't explain, they will remain with the mindset they have and they will resist your collection. Okay? And your relationship will be adverse. It doesn't have to be. So I'm saying, you say they keep trying. What is it that KRA has done to remove this adverse feeling that people have towards them? What have they actually, not what they have tried, what have they done?
I think tax is a very sensitive matter. And it's an important question that you're asking. My sense is that also professionals in that space need to play their role. I mean, you have accountants, the tax advisors, maybe ISPAC, because when you look at legislation around taxation, I mean, I struggle to understand it, and I've done significant level of finance, and I still need to read quite a lot. I really doubt, for whatever effort that KRA will ever do, whether they'll ever really be able to educate the public fully on each individual circumstance from a tax perspective. They can only do it from one bucket to the next. The main role would be for tax advisors. Maybe have ISPAC, so that, every time you think, if you're sick, you go to a doctor. For your tax matters, you really need some sort of...
You pray to God.
You need a tax... You need an accountant in a way.
Well, yeah. Most people...
Or technology.
But Eric, if you're employed...
Yes.
You are taxed. You don't
Somebody
even have a
takes care
say.
of it.
It's just chopped off and it goes
Somewhere.
and it has gone, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yes. So, and then you wait for your employer to sort of like give you this sheet of paper that shows what you've paid in the course of the whole year and so forth. Not much of a problem there.
Yes.
But then these are the citizens who don't have that particular luxury and they make a living by doing some form of business. Okay? Now, why am I giving this example? Look, you in the bank, up until COVID struck, one of the things that banks didn't do very well, you didn't take the time to explain to your customers how they can manage when they have a problem with paying back what you lent them.
For commercial banks.
I'm talking about commercial banks. Yes, he is in a bank. So
I mean, although investment banking...
Yeah, he's in a bank, so he doesn't escape
lend
from
people.
it.
A bank is a bank is a bank.
A
When
bank
CT
is a bank
concerned.
is a bank, okay?
I hear you.
He didn't start off as an investment banker. He was a banker and then probably moved and specialized and became that. No, this isn't fault finding. I'm simply saying that the experience was you got a rude letter from the bank that was essentially threatening your life.
Yes.
Now, the net result of that over the years was that when people owe money, they go into hiding. Instead of simply walking up to the bank and saying, folks, I'm having a problem, blah, 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 blah. Because that aspect of communication was not done well enough, my perspective. So I'm saying KRA, given that they actually don't have a problem with money, they're always collecting it anyway, from a layman's perspective, it's something they can do better. That's really what I'm saying.
No, in fact, that's a very important point. And bankers, I think, have gotten criticism around that particular issue that you've just mentioned. And I remember I did my banking. Well, actually, I was a banker before I became an investment banker. I mean, one of the key things when you're doing lending was that you needed to tell the client that if you run into any trouble, come talk to us before it is due.
Yes.
Because you're probably, if you're an entrepreneur and you need to pay an amount, or you are an employee and your job has fallen away, you'll know it like a month in advance.
You do know.
So what the banks do, essentially, you're supposed to go and talk to them, and they'll be able to structure something.
Yes.
So the only thing is that how do you communicate this? Now you have these automatic loans, and then you have also other lenders who are now these other lenders who might not maybe follow the same level of professionalism as the other commercial banks. And then if you are slightly, for the big businesses, they'll probably be aware that they can approach their banks, and they probably have been doing that over the years.
Yes.
But if you are an individual, probably no one has ever taken the liberty of just telling you, if you're in trouble, you just tell the bank in advance before the loan falls due, and they'll probably be able to work something out with you. I think these are now issues which are now emerging in a crisis that that are important, that really as professionals that maybe we should have played a much better role in informing the public.
A quick one. In terms of matters that have risen as a result of this crisis of COVID, we had a lot of people now who went into informal trade using online platforms to be able to sell. And there's a lot of anxiety right now in terms of, all right, so I've started this business because I lost my job or I needed some additional form of income. I'm selling products on Facebook. I'm selling on...
using WhatsApp,
Instagram. And now folks are wondering, are we going to get slapped with some sort of tax now moving forward that me now selling my goods from the comfort of my home or my car, whatever, that I might now fall into the hands of the taxman?
Like, if I'm looking at KRA properly, I don't think they start at the very bottom. I mean, they start with guys who are evading like a lot of money, and typically those are the ones you see in the newspaper. But very soon they keep sort of lowering the threshold. So I think the sooner somebody just sort of joins into the system, understands what kind of obligations they have, the better it is, because that's the only way they're going to have a business which is sustainable, and also protect their assets. Because you can imagine, sometimes even the principal tax is not a lot. And in fact, for most SMEs, if you're not careful, they're mostly loss-making. I mean, if you're a big business, if you're loss-making, you get a tax loss carry forward, meaning that in future when you make a profit, you're going to offset against the loss you made this year with the profits of that. So you not pay over time until you make profits. They have things like depreciation, which is a cost if you have interest. So sometimes also small businesses just do not take advantage of the breadth of incentives that are provided under the law. And so sometimes in fact, for most of SMEs, the biggest concern is penalties, not necessarily principal. Some might be principal, but those ones would be also very rich people. But for the most part, you'll realize, if you're a company and you fail to pay just one obligation, it's like 20,000 shillings. and then 20,000 shillings, you realize maybe even the principal you're supposed to pay was like 2,000 if you just did the calculations. Then you realize KRA is really more. And if you stay an entire year, let's say on VAT, and you don't file every month, that's 20,000 times 12. It's a big obligation, and it may well be that you're not even doing a big business.
And you'll be out of business shortly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eric. Eric Mousau is Executive Director of Standard Investment Bank. He deals with research. We'll be talking about the digital services tax and other taxation measures that have been rolled out by the government through KRA. 5 minutes to 9. Time for us to say thank you very much to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us on TV. You can join us on radio. If you're in Nairobi, it's 94.4, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu. Nakuru is 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, and Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7. We'll have you again on TV tomorrow morning from 7 to 9, where the conversation continues on Spice FM. This is a Situation Room, on air until 10 a.m.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique, the official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, so 3.5 minutes to 9. We are saying goodbye to Eric Mousau, who's been with us since the top of the hour. Eric, like you have said this many times, many SMEs do not know. Many SMEs do not know that the advantages that they can take, with their tax laws and the tax regimes, that they can even maneuver this situation smoothly. So how is it that SMEs can get to know? I mean, of course, I know you're going to tell me the SMEs the entrepreneurs have a role to play by ensuring that they understand what they should know. But who else has that responsibility?
I believe professionals in the industry. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, at least you have a friend who's an accountant. Talk to them in confidence. Go to the website of various platforms. I think ISPAC launched a platform to try and do something on the tax space. And that's really important, because also you need to figure out your profitability as a business and viability long term. And you also don't want to risk your other assets by getting into a business which is not viable. And so at the end of the day, for SMEs, you really need to know your space. Also, just understand your business. At the end of the day, it may well be that that business is not viable in the manner that it's working. And so, I mean, it's a big challenge, but I don't know. It's something that we all need to solve together as professionals and as a country, even as politicians, the government as a whole. So, and we have many players in government. I know if you're looking at manufacturing, there's Kirdi, industrial, and you go there and you walk in and you find people ready to help. But I think government is also quite big, and you kind of need to really walk out, try and sort of just walk into these offices. You'll find people willing to help.
Or even letting people know that this information is there. The thing is, if you don't hear that it's there, then you're not likely to go out and look for it.
Yeah, or join
the
an
thought
industry.
is that there's this iron sheet that you can't get through.
Yeah.
Or join an industry association, maybe like even there's a Juakali association, and be like, okay, well, if you're in Juakali, if you're in a particular industry, and maybe now through that, maybe it might be a much better safe zone to sort of get the relevant information relevant for your industry, or creatives association and so forth.
I think also industry or professional bodies, like you said, bodies such as ISPAC, for example, they also should take it upon themselves as a responsibility that they have to ensure that they train as many people as possible in the basics.
Yes.
They are the ones who are the carriers of knowledge. What does ISPAC do, for example, to build the capacity of people in the Juakali sector? You can work with those associations, the Juakali Traders Association and such, and say, come together, you guys. We'll be visiting you, and we'll be sending someone to come and talk to you. If you've got any questions, someone who from ISPAC is coming to talk to you, deal with you, pro bono even.
Yes.
But just to make sure that people get to understand. And that's how they'll get business for their junior accountants as well.
That is true.
Eric, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll invite you again for more of these conversations.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here and having this conversation.
Asante sana.
Okay.
Eric Mousau is Executive Director for Research at Standard Investment Bank. He's been with us, and we'll have him again to talk about many other things that SIB does and matters of taxation and SMEs and business. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so we still see heavy traffic on Mombasa Road today, headed out into the city. Very slow. And then inbound as well, we saw some traffic there right about Airtel. We'll see how that opens up in a short while. I know that a lot of folks now are using outer ring, going towards Thika Road to avoid the traffic on Mombasa Road today. And that is causing quite a lot of traffic then going towards the Eastern Bypass. So this is what we see. They say when Mombasa Road gets thorn in its finger, the rest of the city suffers. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Coming off Langata Road was also slow, getting into the city centre right around Nyayo Stadium. Going towards Bagathi Way might be a little bit quicker. Southern Bypass doesn't look too bad right now, neither does Red Hill Bypass. And then out Northern Bypass, and then out towards the direction of Westlands, guys. So we'll still have to contend with this for some time. Let's take a look in half an hour and see what it looks like roundabout. Okay, Spice of MKE, talk to us on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 2.5 minutes after 9. Thank you very much for keeping it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, into the 4th hour of the show. We begin the hour every hour with the day's proverb.
Yes, we do. Yes, we most certainly do. Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever.
Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I was a gun.
True character will always come out.
It doesn't matter what you do.
Okay.
It will emerge.
But changing character will also keep coming out.
It can.
Because character is not fixed, right? You can be of a certain character, but then you...
No, it's what's consistent.
Character is consistent.
I'm saying yes. What essentially forms your character, there are traits that people see consistently over a period of time. That's what they refer to as your character. Now, it doesn't mean it is one thing.
It's not the same character.
No. It means that you represent many things. But for instance, when someone says so-and-so is honest, it's because a lot of the dealings that people see are considered to be honest dealings. There may be places where you're not honest, but it isn't consistent. It isn't something that people see every day. If people say someone is very responsible, it doesn't mean that in their life there are no traits or signs of irresponsibility whatsoever. No, it just means that what is consistent is that responsibility. That's what someone says.
By and large, he's responsible.
Yes. So people say he has a responsible character. That is what they mean.
Right. Okay. So let's shift the conversations
Just a little bit. Okay. So, cultural practice in this around the country and the continent for the longest time has been that we spend a lot of time doing things. Now, if you look at it, there's some countries in the continent whereby you look at the birth of a child, and there's ceremonies around the birth of a child for days, and it's a welcome thing. Then there are weddings, which some cases can take up to a week, the celebration of a wedding. And then, unfortunately, there is death. And in death, we see that sometimes for months after somebody has passed, this individual has not been buried. And all of those seem to be part of culture and tradition as we've been going along, right? And with COVID came in that, especially with things like burials, you can actually have the burial of a loved one done and dusted very quickly with minimal in terms of crowds and give this person a befitting burial. COVID came and kind of forced that situation, not just in Kenya, but around the world. Came and forced people to actually say, you know what, get this thing done really quickly. Bury. Few people there, don't even serve food, bury, be done. We have some that practice this kind of. We know that in the Muslim culture, what it is that you, as within 24 hours of the death of a loved one, the entire burial is finished. Everybody can go home and then now start to have some kind of closure and deal with that. And I'm saying that it's about time we started to look at some of these things with a little bit more seriousness. When somebody dies, the first thing that comes to, one of the few things that comes to mind, even after now you're dealing with the loss, is how on earth am I going to be able to finance this thing? I have to think of moving people from one destination to another. I have to think of feeding this lot of people. I have to think of all the things I'm going to have to buy to give this person a befitting burial, and then go about. And I'm saying it's about time we looked at some of these things and ask ourselves, is it absolutely necessary? And then we actually find that people going into debt because you're burying a loved one. It's about time that we looked at some of these things and said, you know what? We can actually get by with the simple. And we can give a befitting burial in a very short period of time and close the chapter without having all of the trappings that come along with it and put people in an even more miserable situation that has come about as a result of this death. It is possible.
Can we look at why it is that people have the customs that they have? For instance, take for instance, all right? It isn't only in the religion of Islam that people bury within that length of time, no. And the reason why they bury that quickly also has reasons behind it.
Yes, it does.
Now, remember, there is the person who has passed away, the interment, but there is a mourning period. So it isn't as though because someone is buried,
mourning doesn't happen.
No, it happens. And it isn't as though the matter is closed. It isn't actually closed. But there's a reason why, there's a very, very strong reason why all these customs exist. For instance, if you're talking about the lengthy funerals where, depending on someone's stature in the community, it as you say, people come in, it's a week long, and then what we now refer to as people are feasting. Let me talk about the community I come from. For the longest time, you see, the evolution of that practice is what we see. But when someone passed away, the bereaved didn't actually have any cost. No. Relatives, in-laws,
neighbors,
they brought food. In fact, you were not allowed to light any fire in the home of someone who had passed away.
Very true.
It was catered for.
So come with ready food.
It was catered for.
Even where I'm from, that's what happens. I remember when my father passed, I don't think we touched anything in that house for 3 weeks.
So people come with food.
Yes, they do.
That's the practice.
But they don't eat from in their homes and come. They come with food.
They come with
so
food.
that you can share the food with
exactly.
you.
Because it is that this family has lost somebody, and you don't expect them to now go into that whole thing of now trying to prepare for themselves to eat, because probably one of the last things they're thinking about is how to eat.
Yeah.
But that they will be taken care of, and then anybody else who comes along then will have an opportunity to share. So it was something that was taken care of.
So how did that evolve?
Over time, it has evolved to people
cooking
come and
happening
sitting
in the compound
for a week to eat. When you sit down to some of these funeral committees, is that not one of the major
what
things
led
that's
to
there?
that?
The dynamism of culture and the influences that we can only blame on time. Okay? Why do I say this? I'm saying this because, remember, you were talking about communities that were essentially agricultural, and your relatives were not really far away from you. They were just around the corner.
Yes.
Now, with modernization, that changes. People move away, people go to town, and in town they get influence and start acquiring new ideas. So whenever something like a death occurred, then they would have to travel to go home for these things, okay? But remember also, that tight-knit unit that existed ceased to be the tight-knit unit, where it was understood, for instance, that if a relative passed away, the responsibility of looking after the children, if there were any, was something that relatives had to do. It's not just with burials. It's with very, very many other issues. Look, something that is associated with the community I come from, and it has been talked about, especially with the advent of HIV, is called wife inheritance. That community did not invent wife inheritance. Those who have a focus on infinity and they incline towards the Christian faith, it's a focus on infinity, really. Deuteronomy 25, chapter 25, clearly outlines the rules and regulations that were required by that community when it came to someone dying and leaving a wife. And even if they had children, what was done and so forth. Other communities have those rules and regulations. But again, in the time it morphed, where now there was even a commercial element to it. It's like you cannot do certain things until you inherit it. Or a lot of things that previously were not there. Now, what this tells me is that some customs evolved negatively. Others got hijacked somewhere along the way. Others, let's put it this way, people just started doing what they thought was best for themselves. But the spirit with which these customs actually existed and how they evolved, some along the line they got lost.
So if we were to then look back and say, this used to happen some time back, there's the issue of the interment, the burial, and there's the issue of mourning.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And when you say, let's speed these things up, what are you specifically talking about?
No, not necessarily.
When someone has passed away, let's bury them as fast as possible.
No.
Or are you saying, let's bury them and move on?
No, I mean,
and not even have this extended mourning period.
The thing is, but look at it as it happens now. There's the whole planning before it for 2 weeks. There's the whole putting together. That putting together of money, in that 2 weeks, are people mourning? They're not really mourning, if you want to be honest. If you look at the stress that people are going through, planning for transport, that 2 week period that they are sitting down waiting for the burial, it's not that they're sitting mourning. They're planning for this thing.
Yes.
They're planning for all the many details. They're planning for the people who are going to come. How do we
sort
out transport? Who is going to cook? The meals that we have to do from morning, evening, afternoon.
Is the priest available on this day? No, let's change the date.
Other thing. We have to get this particular coffin. It was not being able to. We couldn't find it. We have to wait for this kind of transport to be available. The time before that is not actually spent in mourning, whereas previously it was. Even the time after that, guess what? All those people that you invite to your homestead to come and bury, all these people who came to pay their respects, the day after the burial, they're gone.
Okay.
And
But that whole
by
preparation, as people are saying, for example, let's go for this specific type of coffin and not the other one. And then they say, all right, so this one will require to raise some money. So let's first of all raise money so that we can afford it. Or it's not available. Let's wait for it to be ready. Is that not part of, the giving this person their rightful send-off? Can't you say that is still part of mourning? Because what you're doing, basically, by saying that this person's stature demands that they cannot be buried in this kind of coffin, they shall be buried in this kind of coffin. This person's stature demands that, for example, the head of state must be available for the burial. Now, the head of state is not available in the country on this particular date, so let's change the date so that the head of state, the governor, the whatever, is available. This kind of person's stature demands, is that not giving this person their rightful send-off and the respect in the final days on earth, on ground?
You are now, you've actually painted a very lovely picture of the evolutionary process that we have arrived at.
Yes.
Remember, it was a quid pro quo. it was understood that every people participated in this process. And so when it was your turn, and your turn at some point would come, other people participated. It was understood. But further to that, there were rules and regulations. For instance, in-laws were known. When you attended a burial, this is what you brought. It was known. This is what you did. What am I saying? I am saying that some of those rules and regulations still apply, but there's something that crept into many of these rural communities. It's called poverty. So livestock, which was a plenty, and one could actually just sort of like give livestock. There's no livestock to give. The businesses that the rural communities had, that they survived from, okay, the farming that enabled them to have grain that they could actually donate or give as a gift to the bereaved family, many such communities don't have those things anymore, at least not in the abundance that they had them before. So there are many changes that have necessitated what we now see. Then there's the commercialization of it, and the feeling that some people have more than the others, and so people are quite willing to sit back and let them spend.
Or encourage them to do so and hang out at a particular place for an entire week because you know you're guaranteed of having 3 meals a day while these folks are burying their loved ones.
So all you do is to just go to your home to have a bath.
Yeah.
And then come back.
Or have a change of clothes. And you know, if there's hot water there, then who knows why you need to even go home in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's
others
a place,
even demand to shower.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. It has changed over time. And maybe it's time that really people look back at these simple times whereby you had the loss of a loved one and you needed to bury them. But what it has become fanfare and drama, it, in my opinion, is not necessary. The whole commercial aspect of it that has come into play. This whole idea that, you know what, if we don't do it in this way, people will not be satisfied.
Yes.
That's I have an issue with. And I think that there's still a way in which you can make sure that you're paying respect to this person
without going to
the extent of what we see today. It puts people in a very difficult situation.
16 minutes after 9. What do you think? Do you agree with Ndu? 0719-012-600. Should we review some of these burial rites that we conduct and just borrow a leaf, for example, from the Muslim community and how they do it, and how it, for example, look at how Senator Yusuf Haji was buried, died in the morning, buried in the afternoon, and that was it. Compare to how Mzee Simon Nyachai was buried, died, spent about a week before burial, and how it was then conducted. Let's take a look at the weather, and then we'll pick your calls. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice.
Did you know that knowing your HIV status is simple? You can visit your nearest health center where you will be tested for free, or you can test yourself using the self-kits sold at chemists for 500 shillings only. If you test HIV positive, don't fear, because there is medication that will allow you to live your normal life. You will also be counseled on how to live with HIV and fulfill your life goals or dreams. Knowing your HIV status as a parent is beneficial for yourself and your loved ones. Expectant mothers with HIV, did you know it's possible to deliver a healthy, uninfected baby? Visit a health facility near you during your antenatal visits to get proper information, advice, and treatment for HIV. HIV treatment can improve your overall health and can protect an unborn baby from contracting HIV before, during delivery, and after birth. We must not exclude or discriminate against our HIV-positive counterparts because living with the virus is not a curse. Follow the Ministry of Health's instructions to protect ourselves from HIV and also to protect ourselves from the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Do you know your status? This message has been brought to you by the National AIDS Control Council.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, cloudy conditions in some parts of Nairobi, 20 degrees. We'll go to highs of 28 today and lows of 15. In Nyeri today, sunny conditions at 17, highs of 25. 21 Currently in Nakuru and cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 16. 18 degrees and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 26 and lows of 13. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 21. Kakamega is mostly sunny at 21, highs of 29 today. Light rain continues in Mombasa, well, starts now, highs of 32 and lows of 24. It's mostly cloudy in Malindi at 27, going to highs of 31. 27 will be the high recorded in Kampala today. It's mostly cloudy at 22. It's also mostly sunny in Dar es Salaam at 28, going to highs of 32 today. 27 the high in Johannesburg, and sunny at 23 at the moment. It's mostly cloudy in Lagos now at 25, highs of 34. Highs will be 33 in Kinshasa and partly sunny. All right, taking a look east in Beijing, it's 5 degrees, sunny conditions, highs of 7 and lows of -7. Clear conditions now in Paris at 8. A little bit warmer today, going to highs of 13. Slightly warmer also in London, going to highs of 11, where it's light rain at the moment at 9, and they'll see lows of 5. New York is going to experience some winter weather today. Advisory out for that. -1 at the moment. The highs will be -3. The lows will be -3.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
20 minutes after
Nairobi.
9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Eric Latif, Nduoko, and CT Muga with you this morning. So, just borrowing a leaf from what we saw on Monday. Senator Yusuf Haji died on Monday morning, was buried on Monday afternoon. This was not unique. This is what happens to people who are of the Muslim faith. You're buried within 24 hours of your death. In fact, in very many cases, you don't even need to be transported unless under very special circumstances. This compared to other communities in the country. For example, on the same day, Mzee Simeon Nyachae was buried and he had died 2 weeks prior. And we see also in other communities where burial arrangements take long. There's this komatanga for a week. There's, all these things and people planning and organizing to transport a body many kilometers. Is it about time that other communities actually looked at what we saw with the Muslim community in the case of Yusuf Haji and said, it's the way to go. Someone is buried, let those who are close to him, someone dies, let those who are close to him bury him. And then now the rest of us, if you'd like to send condolences, if you'd like to visit the family, you're still allowed to visit the family and go and condole with them later. But the main person who has passed away has already been buried. Is it about time to do that? What does that take away from, this whole other essence of why things are done the way they're done by those that do them the way they do?
I don't think it takes anything away from it. I don't think it
does.
I don't think it takes away the respect that you would have felt for this individual, if that's what we're looking at. To say that you don't have to go, because what are we talking about now? If anything, it adds to it in some of the cases that we see. That people are, even if we do contribute and things like this, I don't think it removes the respect or the love that you felt for this individual. If you're able to do it in a simple manner that's not going to to bring about any kind of stress. Question.
A very close relative passes away in a certain town and you're not in that town.
Or you're not even in the country.
You're not even in the country. They are buried in your absence. Don't you feel that you've lost out? You've lost out on that opportunity to come and actually give you a send-off to this person. That's the reason why people travel across the world to attend funerals. It's so that you go and pay your last respects. Now, if someone has been buried and you are not even there, now you are landing and you're going to find their grave. Is there not much fanfare even on the graveside? Don't you feel like you've lost that connection with the person? Final connection.
Well, I can see where that would come in. Though the thing is, unfortunately, with a lot of what we see now, by the time this has happened, maybe people have traveled. But truth be told, a lot of the time that is taken to put together is to raise money that is going to be used to feed people. It's not raising money for these people who are traveling. All these people travel on their own accord. It's not to raise money. It's to raise money to feed people and to keep them busy while you're burying. That's the truth.
Actually,
in some parts of the country.
Yes, but in all honesty, sometimes it's a combination of what you're saying, but also with this factor depending on the stage of that person. Sometimes the family wants to ensure that enough time and enough announcements are given so that people who knew this individual get to hear.
Yes.
Because the last, but so-and-so died, we didn't know, you didn't tell us. There's that group. Then there may be relatives, children, who are not in the country. That happens fairly often. You cannot say you are going to bury this parent and the children are not there.
Yeah.
Some children will never forgive you. How on earth did you bury their parent without their presence? Yes, then there's the bit that you mentioned.
But can they adapt?
Actually, even as I'm saying this,
the children of a
Something is turning in your
the
mind.
children of a Muslim parent will not be there.
Yes,
during the burial.
Actually, I had just began what I was saying. COVID has told us and has taught us that just like you can have online weddings, yes, you can attend the burial online. Yes.
It sounds unpalatable because you've never thought about it, right? Because you think, oh my word, no, are you kidding? The death of somebody and you're actually not there. It's because it has never been confronted. The way we say that this thing has brought about so many thoughts that we never thought we would have, right? That how did you ever think that your children would be learning in school and they're not in front of the teacher? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? You never thought some things could happen. But I'm saying that, look, there are times now where minds would start to open up to new possibilities and different realities. It sounds a far cry from what you've thought of traditionally, but it is possible to be done.
Believe me, you're talking of traditions and we're talking of burials. Understanding and accommodating technology into everyday life is a challenge for even people you would think would not have a challenge. In the research work that I have done, I know a period when we couldn't get the funder to understand that we wanted to have a Zoom setup in all the places we worked in so as to save this time of people traveling all these distances to come to a central place to have a meeting and then traveling back. Because all these were costs incurred.
Yes.
It took time for us to get that message.
Your donor could not understand why.
It was a battle that was difficult to win.
Did you win though?
Yes, we did. And then we were now the people who everybody came to learn from how this thing is done.
Now people were coming to
learn. And by the way, it wasn't something that happened in a day. We fought this battle for over 5 years. Saying, look, folks, this people traveling it's not useful. And you did the math and realized, look, it's not even going to cost that much. It's not as though we're going to cross any budgetary limits. No. Within this budget, if we did this and this, the very budget we use for fuel, for traveling, we just said, look, if we take this and do this, and the saving isn't for this month or this year, it's a saving for years to come. Now, it's change. Remember, we've said on many occasions that one of the biggest problems that human beings have is accommodating change.
Yep.
In whatever form. So, this is what you're saying. People want to hold on to a certain value in their customs, a certain value in their culture, without interrogating and asking, is it necessarily the way we should actually be doing this thing? Is it absolutely necessary? Now, to throw the cat among the pigeons also, there's something that comes with burials. Everyone believes when someone dies, they must be put underground. Cremation. Okay, there we go.
Ochome mutu yetu.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You don't want to have
the Archbishop Manasseh's career being cremated. Like,
what is this?
What are you talking about? Let's hear from Zachary. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I have become a ceremonial caller.
And we welcome it.
But I also said, why don't I give other people now new? Because, our family is becoming large.
Yes, it
is. Zachary, one of these days we're going to invite you to come to the studio.
You should, guys.
Yes, we will.
And by the way, let me tell you, yesterday I went to Nakuru town, and I was looking for chairman in Nakuru. There is that guy, chairman Nakuru. And I was with a taxi guy, and we tried to look for him, and I want us to form a spice club, yeah? So if the guy is hearing, let him actually try to consult me. Now, there is this guy from West Africa that I like, this character, they called Okonko, yeah? At one time, Okonko's yams did not do well, yeah? And he said, I'm going to consult the oracle to tell me, to try to tell me why is this going on, yeah? And he went there and he was told, your father, Yunoka, his spirits, they are not resting. And the guy responded, can you, and he was told, okay, if I can try to recall my literature.
You're recalling it very well. Carry on.
Yeah, Yunoka demands that you slaughter some black cocks.
Yes.
Or, something like that, yeah? And then he told the oracle, can you ask him, when he was alive, how many chicks did he, many cocks, okay? You know why I'm saying this? The person that we are burying, if you don't give him this decent burial, if you don't keep him for 2 weeks, his spirits will come back and haunt us. No, I don't believe in that. And the cost of burying people, especially in some of our cultures, has impoverished the families. Let me tell you, Mr. Eric and Mwari Madro there and also do, yeah? When you die, and I think most of us believe in the holy books, the Quran, the Bible, and so on, yeah? You do not require even air that you are breathing, that which is free. God has provided us. You don't need it. You don't even need to smile or cry. The people who are alive are the ones who need these things, yeah? And therefore, me have instructed that when I die, unless probably my body is needed to tell a story, yeah? Under the circumstances which I died, yeah? If my body is not needed to tell a story, like the autopsies tell us that dead bodies talk, yeah? I should be, if I die at 9 a.m., by 12 noon, I should be underground trying to make peace with the moles and the ants who, and the other
Who have you told this, Zachary?
Hello?
Who have you told this?
I've instructed my relatives.
Have you written it down somewhere, Zachary?
Whether I have written?
Yes.
In our culture, the word of mouth is even much more. Oral instructions are even more strong than written.
Have they told you that they'll do that? They'll follow your instructions?
They should, because if they don't,
you will visit them.
It is up to them to deal with the situation, yeah? And let me digress somehow and say that the topic that you're having earlier of the dynasty and the Hasra, that thing probably it should be. You guys, can you try to do so much campaign that let us stop using these words? Please, I beseech you. Let's use the power of media that you have to tell everyone. Can you even stop thinking about the word dynasty and the word Hasra? They should be abolished even from the dictionaries, yeah?
Why?
They are giving me goosebumps. I'm not a dynasty. Neither has any one member of my family been a dynasty or thought of becoming one, yeah? The only place where I try to exercise the dynasty idea is in my house, yeah? Whereby Mama Waithira is saying that she is the Hasra and me and Waithira are the dynasties, okay? But I'm telling her, okay. I have a nice day, guys.
Have a lovely one.
Thank you, Zachary.
Okay.
Let's take a break, 27 minutes to 10 o'clock. What do you think? Is it about time that Kenyan communities started reviewing how they conduct their rites of burial? Not those lengthy funeral meetings and very many days of mourning, but someone dies, someone is buried. Make it as simple as possible. Is it about time? Let's take a look at the traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life. They are smart, They are funny and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those many people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that. No,
is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, traffic.
Okay, so still some traffic on Thika Road and Mombasa Road today, moving slowly. Hopefully we'll see that it opens up in a bit, guys. So the construction all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, then going into the CBD and then out towards Western, it's going to slow down a little bit there. But apart from that, it's looking a little bit better. Coming off of Landis Road, getting out into the CBD as well, coming from Thika Road, a slight hold up right around Ngara, but then you should be fine after that. Okay, let us know through the day what it looks like in your neck of the woods. Spice of MKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
94.4 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's go to the phone lines.
Hello?
Fred, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Good morning, Du.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'd like to make my contributions
yes.
towards this issue of funerals.
Yes.
And why aren't you greeting me?
Oh, Eric.
No. You've made it worse.
It's the other Eric.
Muga. CC
Yes.
Muga.
Yes.
Ndu Ofo and Eric Latif. Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. We made some of observation. I think it was during this COVID time, when the rules for burials was like immediately somebody dies should be buried. That was like a paradigm shift, and some people are very happy about that because of this issue of funeral arrangement and expenses. It was making it lighter for people to do it. But now it seems like, again, since the rules have been relaxed a bit, it's creeping back.
People have
and I can tell you from where I come from, people are saying this thing should remain like that. If somebody dies, they should just be buried. And this issue of contribution and funeral arrangement and these extra expenses should be done away with.
So do you think people felt lighter? People felt lighter with these new rules and said, okay, well, no, it was a burden usually when somebody has passed on, and the burden of having to plan it was something that they were ready to, they didn't mind having that lifted off their shoulders with COVID.
Yes. I can tell you, if I show you my phone on WhatsApp now, I'm in more than 4 groups of people who have died and need contribution to help either in medical funds or in doing such arrangements for burial. And you wonder, every week there is one. And if you don't have one in your phone, you're very lucky. But I can tell you some of the groups you are added, you don't know even whether to contribute because you are just from another one or you are already in another one. So you stay in the group from the beginning of the contribution until the last one without even doing a contribution because they're overwhelming. Some are people who are your friends, some are your relatives, some are your acquaintances. And you realize that it's really something that if you had resources, you'd want to contribute, but you can't in everything. So I would really want people again not to move to that direction, that it should not be something that is going to drain people. As much as we want to give that last respect to the late, but it should not be something that is going to be draining financially and emotionally. Essentially, if you realize that even people who are left after the widow or even the orphans, they don't get a share of this contribution. Everything is exhausted.
Okay.
And that's why the burial, everybody goes away.
Right.
So we let go of all these and just make it very simple.
Yes. Somebody has died. We give them their last respect without making it as expensive as it sometimes made.
Okay. Thank you very much, Fred.
Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. 0719-012-600. We'd like to know what you think. Robert in Nakuru, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's wrong time, but I've been a silent listener.
Good to have you back, Robert.
Yes. So, to me, first of all, I might say I'm a Christian. One of the things I found that the Christian missed out when we were trying to evangelize African society is to fail to understand that they are a communal society. So what community says is very, very important. They control what community thinks is right. It's what is right. Not just what maybe someone thinks. So people try to behave the way the community thinks or the taboo says is right. So as a Christian, maybe I would feel that it will not be good to say that to address a spiritual matter, because we know that most traditional society, they believe that these people do not actually die, but they become ancestors. And ancestors are guardians. They were assumed to be the guardians of the society.
Yes.
How you treated, how you acted, how you did your things, you are watching. So if we are to address that matter, we must also tell the society, if we cannot just say mechanically that they are not there, so let's forget about them. Let's do things without involving them. Maybe what I think maybe Christian community does is that we show them that, okay, they are dead, but their spirit might be either in hell or in heaven. Yeah. So.
But now, where you stand, Robert, today?
Sorry.
Do you support these lengthy burial ceremonies?
What we do as a church normally, because we have already addressed the fact that these people are dead and have no say as far as we are concerned. We try to see how we can have a burial on a very quick way. Especially we are looking at the budget. But at the same time, you know that the society is a communal, so we normally try to engage the community. We try to be there for them, tukitokea job, tunapitia hapo, because of that communal aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Asante sana. John in Elbagon, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Morning.
Very fine.
Very well, thank you.
Yes, I think the issue of culture, as they say, culture is dynamic.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to fight it. With time, people will just change. That's what I believe. I'm encouraged by somebody who said that where it comes from, people were happy with the COVID the way people are burying immediately. But where I and Muga come from, we are still going to revisit. We buried, but we are going to revisit. So
you have not let go.
You have not let go. So culture, with time, culture will change with time.
So we just sit back and allow this to happen organically.
Yes, with time it will just. There's some things that we used to do 10 years ago when people died, or even 5 years, that people are not doing now.
Like what?
For example, Muga will tell you, when somebody died in where we come from, everybody used to be shaven kabisa, unanyolewa kabisa kichwa mzima, the whole family. Muga can confirm that.
It is
When
true.
your parents die.
It no longer happens.
It no longer happens. So with time, you don't have to fight it. You don't have to be so much concerned. Talk about it, but with time, culture will just evolve, and it will be swallowed with the new things which are coming, and people will realize these things are not important. By the way, let me tell you, some of these people that you are saying that they bury their people immediately, some of them actually say that I wish we could be doing the way you guys do.
Oh, really? Mm.
Yes. Some of them say, this is very fast. We have not even mourned, So I wish we could be staying even for a week or two before we bury. So it's just culture. And I believe with time, people will realize that these things don't add so much value, and we can do without.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Fred.
thank you.
Thank you, John. Anthony in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Nzuri sana. I think I would somehow concur with John. But okay, I stay in Mombasa.
Yeah.
This issue of Muslim burying, we've witnessed it all along, and we've really, to my side, I say I admire it.
Yeah.
It's quick. It's money saving. We don't incur a lot of. Some families go to an extent of even selling their properties just to give their loved ones a good set of.
Yeah.
But when you do it as quick as that, and also it has some disadvantages, there are issues that have come up for people who are buried alive. Somebody, especially the rural areas where they are not those doctors, how the doctors are not good enough to confirm if the person is dead or alive. So somebody goes into a coma, and somebody says he's dead.
Bury them.
I know of two cases. Guys who woke up when they were almost to be buried.
Wow. Kind of freaky.
They realize this guy is alive. When they are just by the graveside is when they realize this guy is alive. And they took him to hospital. He was confirmed, yes, he's still alive. He's in a coma.
So the burial was too quick, is what you're saying?
Yes, so quick. But I find it when it comes to the economic side of it. I find it being better. We should move with time. In fact, I'm of the point that cremation, quick burying cremation is much better. We save time.
Now, can you imagine those people who woke up?
Nowadays, you find that
you can't actually wake up when you've been cremated.
You wake up in the oven. You find that nowadays, kama makaburi hapa Mombasa, most of them, people are being buried on top of other bodies. The makaburi yameja, so you are being told, you dig 3 feet. You bury your loved one 3 feet, because there's somebody else down there. There are issues of even dogs coming and pulling these bodies out. It has happened.
Wow.
If you go to these cemeteries, you find human bones lying all over. They are there. So that's where the issue of cremation comes in. It's much better.
Okay.
But this issue of staying with a body for a week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you raise money, especially people from up country, and we live in Mombasa, you find that to save someone up country, you spend not less than 100,000. That's just transporting the body and the people to the burial. You've not incurred other costs. And you find that this family, maybe, I remember one scenario, these people were not well off, they were poor. So we are spending 100,000, sending someone to bury him, then leaving the wife and the kids hungry.
Yeah.
They have nothing to eat. We would have better raised the 100,000, gave it to the wife. At least we sustain her life to be better.
Or
but now when
you should have raised 200,000. 100,000 for the wife, 100,000 for the burial.
What if the farmers, you could go with 100,000? Because you find that you come up with a target. This is the budget we have, and you find that even raising that amount is a bit hard. By nick and luck, you find that you've made it to the 100,000.
Yeah.
So instead of spending the 100,000 and then the wife comes languishing in poverty back again, the husband is gone, I felt it would have been better giving her the 100,000 and we bury the husband here in Mombasa.
That's true. That's true.
So that at least we should move with time.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay.
Patrick in Vihiga, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm fine. Now, this topic is very interesting. I support the idea that when one dies, burial rites should be completed within the shortest time possible. I remember sometimes back when I was a child, the dead body belonged to the society.
Yeah.
And the burial rites never took more than 3 days. If it was longer, 6 days. So the clan elders sat and decided when to bury. And the budget was very simple. Tafuta mbao mbili, kumi, nini. We make a coffin and bury, just a coffin.
Yep.
But these days we go for class. 100,000 coffin, what and what, because we want to please our friends and so on. So we go for class and forget that funerals come with the economic pitfalls to the family, and they come with economic gains to the people organizing the funeral committees.
Yeah.
This one is very common in Western and Nyanza areas. So some people benefit from the death of someone, and the family is left wallowing in poverty. So what I believe is that we shift from the paradigm that is gaining fast, the Western culture, and we restrict ourselves to burying someone within the shortest time possible. So this idea of mortuaries has really done us poor.
So it's all business. There's a mortuary. There's
all business, because you imagine in a family.
Yep.
Imagine in a family where you have deaths today, maybe by bad luck another person dies. The people who are in that family are unemployed elsewhere, Nairobi, Mombasa, and so on. We lose jobs.
Yeah.
Alafu unashindwa hii magari yote ambayo nakuja kati mtu nazikwa inatoka wapi?
Point made. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Good day.
You too. 0719-012-600, the burial rites and the ceremonies that we conduct. So it's become too commercialized.
Actually, the focus is on the money, and yet there is a social element that was always attached to these. And I alluded to it by saying there was time given, children to essentially make their way, friends who, because it was assumed that when people die, usually they were not young. And so if they were in a workplace, they were no longer there. Now, people whom they knew given time. But also importantly, at many funerals, there are testimonies that people gave. Forget these political speeches that have now invaded burial ceremonies. No. The person was eulogized. The person, you'd hear history, you'd hear a contemporary telling you things that none of you would have known. And again, depending from community to community, I know that in the community I come from, it was a time when people spoke honestly about that person.
True.
If the person was known to have an affinity for property that weren't his, they would say it. Yes, it sounds weird, yes, they would say it. Okay? But now, the way it has evolved, even someone who was known to be the most despicable individual or human being you'd ever come across, suddenly this person just stopped short of being an angel.
Yeah.
Okay?
You know, we are all human, and as you all understand, humans will always stray here and there. But and deep down, this person was
an excellent person. Yes. Then you'll choose the one thing that people in living memory can't remember and say, he did this, and well, nobody can remember it, so you can't dispute it.
One time I was walking to the shop, and I tripped and I fell, and he was walking by, and he helped me up.
Had it not been for him,
he's a very kind soul. Precisely. And he did not ask for anything. He was
so again, it was a time, remember, if you're talking about eulogizing, at a time when people, the mode of communication was oral. When I say oral, I mean it. Yes, people may write things down, but it wasn't writing. People wanted to hear.
Right.
So it was an opportunity for people to say things. It was an opportunity for the children to say things if the person had children. It was that opportunity, and it was important so that you got to know this individual was not just your average. You see, now, when someone who has held a high position in government dies, it is written. You can read, But
it only just takes, it only recognizes what they were doing while in office.
Yes.
What this person did for you as an individual. And you'd like to stand up and eulogize and say, you know what, I remember Mweshimiwa.
You may not know this,
one
but
thing
this one thing.
Yes. You don't get that opportunity. Matthew in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning, good people.
Good morning.
Ali aon Zakari alikuwa amesema ananitafuta. Mtashare namba yangu, tutatafutana.
Sawa.
Very good.
John amesikia anakupatia tu namba sahi.
Back to the topic. Now, I totally agree with the previous caller. Nowadays, when someone dies, it's actually an opportunity for some people to benefit, but at the detriment of the family.
Right.
Because you see, right now, for instance, you've been unwell and you required financial support maybe to take care of your hospital bill. Let me tell you, you will find yourself as a loner until they declare you deceased. Then all the money will come up. You know, it doesn't make sense. This previous scholar said, wakati mtu amekufa ndio unaona magari, high-end vehicles zimekuja for burial yako. Yet when you really needed just 100 shillings, you could not get someone to help. No one came through. A practical example, there's a comedian that was on TV the other day seeking for a job, Omosh.
Yes.
Right now, until he opened up and talked of what he was going through, this guy was suffering alone. Angekufa, ungesikia vile kila mtu angesema how Omosh was a very good person, vile, you know. Yet when they were going through the worst of their plight, no one came through for them. It doesn't make sense. I agree that let's make this thing short. Okay? Nikikufa leo, try put me on in the ground within the shortest time possible. Don't leave my family with a burden ya kulisha watu. You know, people who would actually, some of the people you struggle to feed over that 1 week period, they never even knew who you were in the first place. You know, but just because someone has decided, mtu amejua kuna matanga pale, huyo anajua hapo nitakula na nitashiba vizuri. 3-course meal. You know, for the division of the maombolezi. Does it even make sense?
It doesn't. Thank you very much, Matthew.
Yeah. You're most welcome.
John will give you Zachari's number, muongee.
Sawa, asante, tashukuru sana.
Thank you. Steve, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
How are you?
Very fine. Habari ya wazito huko?
Wazito ni wazito.
Na wewe mzito mwenzetu, habari yako?
Mimi niko Kirugoya, niko sawa.
Asante.
Yes.
Mazishi.
Sasa, I think from the discussion, the eyes have it.
Okay.
Let's see the dead where they belong. Not in the morgues or anywhere else. But here in the Mount Kenya region, I think we have adopted the system of Nyanza and Western, where people now go to eat. And I believe it is becoming hectic and very expensive.
Right.
So my proposition, if it will be adopted, is that let's bury these people as soon as possible. We're in the digital age, so everybody will know that someone is dead. If they want to come, they come. If they want to contribute, they contribute.
And if they want to watch, they can watch.
Yes.
Asante, Steve. Thank you very much and have a lovely day in Kirugoya.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana. So the eyes have it, according to Steve. The eyes have it. There is all those things. There's a social element that you brought up, which is true. There is a financial burden that has been brought up, which is also true. There is the issue of balancing. And then there are some communities where you had not built a home. In Shags, first of all, we have to go and build a home before your body is brought.
True.
So there's a harambe now for
to build the house.
Building a house.
And it's immediate.
It's got to be done.
Yep, it has to be done.
Yeah.
It has to be done.
So let's conclude the show with the day's proverb.
Character is like pregnancy. It cannot be hidden forever. You know, one of the things that often influences culture the most are dramatic changes. COVID is one such agent. Drought is one such agent. Flooding is one such. Anything that is unusual and traumatic and forces you to adjust, it gives culture a little nudge. Sometimes it's a big nudge because you realize, you know something?
Can do without this thing.
I can actually do without this thing, and I don't really need to do it the way
It's been done.
Yes. And
John also adds dry spell.
Yes, exactly.
You talked about that. Huh?
Yes. Yeah. It's called drought.
Dry spell.
And also, there's just the human nature in resisting change.
Because we've always done it this way. God forbid we do anything differently.
It's like there's a curse,
waiting for you if you do it differently.
Should you dare?
Blast you out of there.
Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room today. See you again tomorrow morning. Ndu,
yes.
Say goodbye.
Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again tomorrow.
Okay. Tomorrow is Friday, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
The only Friday of the week.
Tomorrow is the Friday.
The Friday of the week.
We enjoy having your company. We hope to have you again soon. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.